Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. No highlights because there were very few highlights for the Cardinals last night. They lose on the road once again. This one by a final score of 3-1. Alex, this is the theme of the season thus far. I'm having a tough time explaining it. The Cardinals are Jekyll and Hyde. On one side, they have who they are as a home team, and T-Bone was running us through the numbers earlier today. They're one of the top 5 offenses in Major League Baseball. Their pitching has been perfectly fine. They're well above 500 at home. They look like a all-around pretty darn good team. And then they go on the road, and suddenly they're the bad news Bears. And it could be anything, right? In some games, it's the offense. Last night, the offense was flat. In some games, it's the pitching. You go back to the series, for example, in Boston. Not great, Bob. In other games, it's the base running. You go back to that series against Pittsburgh where you lose in 13 innings and you're thrown out at home roughly 7 different times. So it could be a little bit of anything, but overall, your road record on the season, 2-12. We are 30 games into the season. You are 2-12 on the road.
That's
all
not
right,
good.
boys. I decided to have a homework assignment today.
Oh, I don't know if I would have done that.
Who are the teams with a worse record than the Cardinals on the road through their first 30 games of the season?
Better known as...
The Cardinals are right now at 29 games.
Better known as BK cherry picking.
Sure, if you want to call it that. So this year, the Rockies, God bless them, 1-14 on the road.
Oh, God. That's not how you want to start this, man.
So the problem for the Rockies is they're also terrible at home. So it hasn't gone well for them no matter where they play.
Good.
At least the Cardinals have that going for them. So other teams with a worse record than the Cardinals on the road through their first 30 games of the season. Last year, the Rockies again, 2-13.
Okay, this is not giving me the good vibes.
The White Sox, they went 1-13. Beyond that, the 2022 Reds, they started 2-15. The 2016 Twins, this is a who's who of baseball teams, 2-14. 06 Pittsburgh Pirates, they were 2-15. The 06 Royals, I remember growing up with that team. It wasn't good, ladies and gentlemen. 2-14 on the road. 05 Astros, you may remember them, Alex. We've referenced them before for our Cardinals team.
Okay, is Brad Ausmus coming on the show later on today?
They were 1-14, and once again, the Rockies show up on this list in 2005 at 2-15.
So it's not good to be a Rocky is what I'm learning today.
It's not great that it didn't take me long to get through that list of the worst road records through the first 30 games of the regular season, and the Cardinals are among them. Here's another similarity between most of these teams, Alex.
I like the way you're looking at me, Brandon.
All of them, other than the 05 Astros, lost at least 95 games that season.
Ooh.
And then the 05 Astros went to the World Series. So you can make your determination on which of those two categories the Cardinals are more likely to fall into.
Well, the good news is if you get home field advantage throughout the first couple of rounds, you might make the World Series.
Yeah, who knows? That's what you play the regular season
Team's
for,
undefeated
right?
at home, it feels like.
Alex, I don't think this is a bad baseball team necessarily. Like, I don't think they're great. I promise you. I don't think they're a great baseball team. But I don't think they're this bad. They're not last year's or this year's Rockies. So what do I do with their road woes? What am I supposed to make of this?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I have no sexy sports take on this one of being like, you should buy out of this Cardinals team. They're fun. They're good at home. It's just you got to understand that when they go on the road, who knows what's going to happen. It's like trying to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I don't know what you're going to get because whether the offense struggles or the bullpen struggles or maybe the starting pitching struggles, although they've been pretty consistent for you. To me, I wonder if it's just the growing pains of a younger team. And it seems odd to say because it's not like these guys haven't been around.
Isn't it all the same dudes that they were last year?
Yeah, it is. But it's the only thing that I can put my finger on because why would you be so good on home or at home versus being on the road? Like, it's the biggest question mark for this Cardinals team, and the only thing I can come up with is like, well, maybe they're trying to learn still how to win on the road, which seems like a very odd thing to say. I'd love for somebody to put another variable in front of me as to why they're bad. They're not just bad on the road. They're one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball on the road.
Isn't it possible it's just random?
There's nothing random about being 2-12 on the road.
I typically would agree with that.
Look at the teams that are worse than you on the road and tell me it's random.
I'm with you, but a few of these games we can acknowledge, like the game at Pittsburgh, you lose in 13 innings. They had every opportunity to win that game.
Right,
that was
but
a random.
Still lost.
Yeah, they flipped a coin and it went in favor of the Pittsburgh Pirates. The game that they were up 4-2, Ryan Helsley comes into the game. Boom, they end up blowing it, lose that game 5-4 in Boston. That's a flip of the coin game. In fact, probably like an 80% chance that you win that game. They found a way to lose it. I don't think that's just because they were on the road and they weren't sleeping in their own beds the night before that they found a way to blow that one.
Does have back issues on the road.
You flip those two games, boom, Cardinals suddenly back in it. They bring in Ryan Fernandez. I'd have to look it up. I wonder if some of this is just Ryan Fernandez has pitched more on the road than he did at home. I'm being totally serious. Maybe it's that simple because they have the second worst road ERA among relievers in all of Major League Baseball. So it could just be, hey, Ryan Fernandez goes on the road and gets lit up, and at home he doesn't pitch as often. Again, I'd have to look through it, but I'm seeking.
Real quick, at Boston, 2/3 of inning, 3 earned runs. At Boston, he got the loss because he gave up a walk-off. At Pittsburgh, okay, he was good in that outing.
But how many times has he pitched on the road versus at home is what I'm looking for here.
He's been pitched on the road 6 times.
6 of his last appearances were on the road.
And this is where all of his runs mostly came. 2 walk-offs, a 3-run outburst in the Mets game, and then that 1 run he allowed in that Atlanta game. That
cool.
The game.
There you
That's
go.
part of it, but you lost yesterday and Ryan Fernandez wasn't there, and you scored 1 run.
But yesterday was just baseball. Yesterday you just got beat.
Good old baseball.
By Nick Martinez.
Yeah, the other team played better than you yesterday, and there's like not a whole lot that I have to take away from that individual game, honestly.
I mean, if we want to blame Ryan Fernandez, then that's fine. But I need to have more of a. I need more examples to go off of where Ryan Fernandez wasn't the liability in this one, and they were losing or winning on the road.
Don't you worry, they'll win the next 3, and then they will prove
And you know
us
what?
wrong.
Then you and I will come back on the radio, and we'll be like, "Oh yeah, it was Ryan Fernandez," which is an awful thing to say.
And I'm not saying it's exclusively him, but that at least helps to explain how you got to this place. Because I think the Cardinals are more of a, couple games below 500 team. Instead of being 2-12, could they be 6-8, 5-9? Because none of us are talking about it if that's the record on the road. That is like within the normal range of what you'd expect for a mediocre baseball team to be on the road. But they're 2-12. Like it is alarming because of how drastic the difference is between 10-5 at home, 2-12 on the road. Again, if they were 6-8, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And frankly, if they were 6-8 on the road, we'd be talking about a team that overall is slightly above 500 on the season.
Yeah, I agree with. I think it is just one of those statistical anomalies where you look at what's going on, and it's certainly, at least looking at the game logs back with Ryan Fernandez, it feels like it can kind of be pinpoint on him because that's where he was appearing in most of his games. Cardinals were using him in spots where he allowed literally 2 walk-offs and then what might as well have been a walk-off where he gave up a 3-run bomb in the bottom of the 8th inning. You watch them with your eyes, you do the eye test, they don't look like a team that should be 2-12 on the road. And what I mean by that is when you watch them for the full sample that we've seen through the first month of the season, they don't look like the team that we are seeing right now, right? They feel like a team that, to your point, should be like probably around 500, maybe a couple games below 500, not to where they are right now. Like they're on pace right now for 95 losses this season. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they are better than that. Now, they're not a 85-win team by any means. They're probably about 80 wins, in my opinion. 80, 77, somewhere in that range.
Sure.
It's just one of those where it just happens to be they are losing when they go on the road, and I think part of that was because they were so unwilling to change their bullpen. I agree with what Alex said. We'll talk about this a little bit more as we progress now that they've kind of started to go through a bit of a bullpen churn. But if they can fix their bullpen, that's been their biggest problem when they go on the road. I mean, you mentioned their ERA. They're one of the worst units in baseball when they hit the road. Their pitching staff's been fine. The offense, though, hasn't been great. It's been middle of the pack when they're on the road this season. They can get away with that. It's just the bullpen that's been their biggest problem.
And that's something that, I mean, I'm agreeing with all of you guys. This team is not bad. And I know that's odd to say, especially from me, who has been the biggest Cardinals naysayer for the last couple of years. I don't think this team is bad. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think you're somewhere in the middle, which is above expectations of what I had this season. But if this trend continues, I don't like the numbers and the odds that are going against you of being the Colorado Rockies and having 95-plus losses.
I'm with you. I don't love that idea either. I don't think it's going to sustain this way. I do think they will eventually be more average on the road than what we've seen. The other thing is Palante with another quality start yesterday. And this is the thing to me that is so strange about what we're witnessing right now is it is that truly that whack-a-mole, right? One night it's the offense, another night it's the rotation, another 3 nights it's the bullpen, and then boom, base running problems tonight. Like it's just a little something different every night for the Cardinals, and I suppose that's what it looks like as you're going through a transition like this. But in their last 20 games, this is dating back to the end of the Boston series where their rotation got absolutely destroyed at Fenway. Since then, though, in 20 games, your rotation has a 3.2 ERA, good for 7th best in Major League Baseball. Teams behind you in that regard include the San Diego Padres, the Philadelphia Phillies, the New York Yankees, Arizona. Like, it's some of the better team rotations that you can see across baseball. Cardinals are better than all of them. 3.2. And yet, in this stretch of games, you're not having success. You're like 8-12 overall. Man, if I told you coming into the season, there's going to be a 20-game stretch in the first 30 games of the season where the Cardinals rotation has a 3.2 ERA. I don't know where you guys would have stood, but I would have been like, oh, they're probably like 12-8, 13-7. They probably had a lot of success, and it hasn't happened because their bullpen has been imploding. The offense has gone through a little bit of a funk. They really miss Ivan Herrera in the middle of the order. And here we are with the team that is well below 500, 12-17 on the season, already 4th place in the NL Central. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You guys can check us out on YouTube, as always, at youtube.com/101ESPNSTL. That is where the Graveyard Chat is off and running. We've got Nathan, we've got James, we've got Ryan, we've got BX, we've got Kyle. All of them over there talking it over in the Graveyard Chat. We are broadcasting live today from the ENB Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center. We've got Jordan Deacon back in the studio for us. We will be joined by Jeremy Rutherford later on in the show today. Bruce Boudreau, one of our favorites, the former NHL coach. He's going to join us in the 12 o'clock hour. Plenty of thoughts from you and certainly plenty of thoughts from us on the Blues throughout the day today. Coming up next, can the Blues keep the same style that they've been playing if Tyler Tucker is out for game number 5? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios, this is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
It's time for a Blues playoff report presented by English Sweep Fireplace and Chimney Restoration. Schedule your chimney inspection at EnglishSweep.com.
Blues hold it in on a nice play by Texier to Sundqvist. Centers. DeMello intercepts. Leddy along the wing. Keeps it alive for the Blues. Texier with one hand on the stick. Comes back to Leddy. Over to the far side. Tucker! He scores! Tyler Tucker! From the right point to the back of the net. To a Blues lead. 2-1. 9:14 to play. Second period.
Alex, the change in this series has been very clear and easy to see. It took place in Game 3 and Game 4 when the Blues, yes, returned to home ice, but also when the Blues put Tyler Tucker back into the lineup. And a big part of that decision, as Jim Montgomery explained it, was to get more offense from the defensemen. And not just goals, but just putting pucks on net, creating that chaos in front of Connor Hellebuyck. This has been the one thing that has been an issue for Hellebuyck all season long. If you go over to some of the nerdy number sites and you look at some of the graphs that they have up, it's a heat chart of where the goals are coming from against Connor Hellebuyck. And for him, there's one spot that has any red on it, and it's from the point, which is a strange thing to see for an all-time great goalie, but for Connor Hellebuyck, it's the one thing that has at times given him trouble. It was the issue for him last year against Colorado. It is the issue for him once again against the St. Louis Blues. Now, we saw this in the first couple of games of the series where the Blues had a combined 25 shot attempts, not just on goal, but shot attempts overall from their defensemen. In the last two games, they doubled that. 50 shot attempts total in the two games here at home by the Blues defensemen. A big part of that was Tyler Tucker. He's getting much less ice time than Parayko or Fowler, so the numbers aren't quite the same in terms of the volume statistics. But in terms of like shot attempts per minute that they're on the ice, Tyler Tucker's second on the team in this series behind only Colton Parayko. Alex, we don't know what the answer is to his status just yet. The Blues are expected to take the ice shortly here at the Centene Community Ice Center. But if Tucker is unable to go in Game 5, how much, if at all, does that change their style, their plan of attack against Connor Hellebuyck?
It doesn't change it at all, in my opinion. Frankly, they're going to tell Ryan Suter, you need to join into the identity of what the Blues have been. And I'm not concerned about it. Now, if it looks poorly in game number 5 tomorrow with Suter on the ice, then I wonder if Matt Kessel gets in if Tyler Tucker's unavailable. Right now, it's adapting to what the Blues are having success with. And this is the part that I'm not concerned with. We're talking about a guy who is 40 years old, who's been playing in the league since he was 19 years old. Ryan Suter knows how to adapt. He was probably pissed that he was a healthy scratch in game number 3. I know I probably would be. But now you sat up top, and you saw what Tyler Tucker did in 2 games that you didn't do. So my gut tells me Ryan Suter's going to go in and he's going to adapt to what the Blues are looking for. Just put pucks on net, because the weakness is very apparent with Connor Hellebuyck. The Blues are going to continue to play the same style, and Suter's going to get his ice time. My guess is he's going to play somewhere between 16, 17 minutes. Typically that third pair does. But when he's out there, it's going to be put the puck on net. Take shots from the blue line. Make sure you're putting pressure on Connor Hellebuyck. And if he doesn't do it, then he knows he's going to come back out of the lineup. So I'm not concerned about it at all. I think the numbers were a little telling in the first 2 games of why he wasn't shooting, but frankly, the defense wasn't shooting in the first 2 games. They were playing the stay-at-home style. And remember what Jim Montgomery said going into that series. They put a massive emphasis on their own end and how they were going to play defensively. It wasn't until after game 2 that he said, yeah, we need to kind of shift a little bit more into how we're going to play in the offensive zone. And that was when Suter came out, Tucker went in. I think they're going to be fine. I think Suter's going to join into the conversation of the identity of the Blues team. And if not, then I think we'll see Matt Kessel in Game 6.
It's just not his game. Like, this is one of the things that I will be most curious about is, like, so there were 267 defensemen this year that played 150 minutes or more on the ice. 267 total defensemen. If you look at shot attempts per 60 minutes, Suter was in the bottom 10 out of those players. For what it's worth, Nick Leddy was in the bottom 5. in those players this year. He just wasn't putting pucks on net. So is he actually going to be able to or be willing to change who he is completely, Ryan Suter, as a player going into this series when this is who Tyler Tucker is? Well, he wants to put the pucks on the net. That's part of his identity.
And I don't know if this isn't like Suter, if you go back 2 years ago in the playoffs with Dallas, he had 68 total shot attempts, 21 on goal in 19 playoff games. So it's 1 shot on goal per game, but he's averaging a little over 3 shot attempts per game. So I don't know if it's who he is. I think it's more of what the Blues wanted from him in those first 2 games, to where we needed an emphasis, the Blues being...
My numbers were for the full season, though.
Oh, yeah, no. But also you have to remember who Ryan Suter is in the regular season. Like, he is a stay-at-home defenseman. That's what his role typically is. But now that the emphasis is known of, like, hey, we need shots from the blue line, I do believe Ryan Suter can adapt because he did it in the playoffs 2 years ago with Dallas.
Yeah, I hope so. It is something that does give me a little bit of pause. Not that I think that this is going to be like the reason the Blues win or lose this series. You're not winning or losing based on whether it's Tyler Tucker or Ryan Suter out there. Just like you weren't winning or losing based on if it's Alexander Texier or Matthew Joseph in the lineup.
Wow.
But I do think these small margins in a series like this, they can matter. I mean, we saw, I think, personally, Alexander Texier has just been better in this series thus far than Matthew Joseph. Again, they didn't win or lose based on him being inserted into the lineup, but it didn't hurt. And the same thing was true for Tyler Tucker. His shot, his ability to put those on net, it matters to a degree when he's out there on the ice for the 10 to 12 minutes a night. So it is something that I'll be watching going into game number 5. How much does that change the style of play when Ryan Suter is on the ice compared to if Tyler Tucker was out there? And again, we don't know for sure that Tucker's going to be out. It just didn't look good when he left the ice.
I will say the other area that I'm going to be really interested in when Suter's on the ice is how he is in his own end. Because if you guys remember, like, he got beat 2 separate times in game number 1. Now, one was a bounce on the penalty kill. He couldn't do anything about. But the goal that made it, the goal that put Winnipeg up 2-1, if I'm remembering this correctly, or made it 2-2, that was Ryan Suter on the ice that didn't get the puck out of the own end. And then in game number 2, he got beat in the first period. So Tyler Tucker has been good in his own end so far in games 3 and games 4.
On that point, too, it's not just like when they are hemmed into their own zone. It's also just the transition game.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've really liked about Tyler Tucker is he'll stand a guy up as they're coming into the zone. Suter is much more, at least based on my own eyes, what I've seen from him, he is much more of a conservative guy where he's going to get back. He's just going to consistently, he's going to follow them back towards the net, and he's going to try to stop the play from getting going as opposed to like dictating the terms to the forward that's coming into the zone. And that's more what Tyler Tucker does, where he's going to back up. All right, now I'm going to charge. And it's just a slight difference stylistically. It's not that one is good, the other is bad.
Yeah.
But in this series, I think it does require a little bit more. And so far we've seen it. The Blues, when they were at their best, were dictating the style of play at all times.
Yeah.
It was on their terms. And Tyler Tucker, to me, fits that style of series better than what you were getting out of Ryan Suter.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of this.
Yeah, because those zone exits, I mean, we've seen guys quick one pass and then skates it out of the zone rather than in the first 2 games. They were stuck in there just trying to pass it out of the end. But to go to the point in the offensive zone again, man, what Tyler Tucker does really well isn't just put shots on goal. He pinches in. If there's a play along the boards, he jumps up and is aggressive with it. I don't know if Ryan Suter is that, and if he is, this will be good for the Blues. If he's not, again, it wouldn't surprise me if Game 6 Matt Kessel gets in.
All right, so I do want to play a little bit of audio. I watched and listened to so much Jets coverage yesterday. It was insanity.
Good for you. I'm surprised you don't have a Canadian accent yet.
I'm all in on this series, man. It's fascinating.
The same guy that said, what was it, like something Canada, as when he was making
Calgary, Canada.
Calgary, Canada.
Yeah. I love Canada.
No, now he knows where Winnipeg is. It's in Manitoba.
That's right. It's right in the middle. Like it's north of Detroit.
Central
I had no
time
idea.
zone, baby.
Could have sworn that it was on the West Coast, but nope, it's sure not.
Who would have thought?
It is Central Canada.
No time zone
right
change.
In the middle. So I was watching Sportsnet yesterday, Alex, and they were talking about this series, breaking it all down. And I did find it interesting because we put so much of this on Hellebuck. We've put it on what the Blues are doing offensively with their defensemen. There's a million different angles, though, that you can take, and I thought they took an interesting one. Take a listen.
I think a big part of that is the run support. He hasn't been given quite the run support other than game 1 that he is used to throughout the course of the year as one of the league's best scoring teams, one of the best teams in the power play. spotlight. And as a result of that, now everything is focused on what's happening in front of Hellebuck. So you're not looking at always being in the lead and playing with a comfortable cushion. Those things aren't happening right now. And so the reliance on the goaltender is that much more into the spotlight when that happens.
Alex, that's one of the things that you brought up early in the series, just like the Jets playing from behind are a different team. Now, their record isn't very good when they're coming from behind because nobody's record is particularly good when you're playing from behind. That's why everybody wants to get that lead early. But I remember, I think it was it Robert Thomas? No, it was Booch. It was Booch who said this. Early in the series, the Blues were just playing from behind, and it changes the way that you have to play. Mm-hmm. And the Jets look uncomfortable when they're playing from behind. And you can see it wearing specifically on Connor Hellebuck. Something that we probably haven't done enough of is talk about how excellent the Blues' goal suppression was over the last couple of games. Yes, they're scoring at will. There's a million different things that are going into that, including the Blues putting pucks on net. It's also the structure in their own end. The lack of high-danger chances that they're giving up. The timely saves by Jordan Binnington, who appears to be, once again, getting into the head of Kyle Connor. So those are some of the things that are leading to so much pressure going back on Connor Hellebuck. It's like a starting pitcher in the playoffs. Like, I keep going back to this comparison because it feels apt. It's Clayton Kershaw, who, yeah, he's pitching pretty well, but he gave up 3 runs. But guess what? His offense isn't scoring. So, once again, choke artist.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what you do if you're not perfect. And you can feel that as you're in the middle of these games. Connor Hellebuck feels the need to be perfect right now.
To me, that's why this game tomorrow night, the first goal is going to be critical. Because we've seen the ebbs and flows of Winnipeg's arena. When the Blues score, that place is quiet. And when the Winnipeg Jets score, that place gets rowdy. And that's the part that typically shifts the momentum. So Binnington's been unbelievable in this one, and I say that with the knowledge of how great he's been in the past. But he is in the head of certain players on that Winnipeg Jets team. But, I mean, the Blues just have not given much to the Winnipeg Jets in their own end. It's forcing guys to make plays that they typically don't play. It's forcing them to create turnovers. And if you're the Blues and you can keep that momentum going, Connor Hellebuck's a guy that if you put one on him early, then the Winnipeg Jets are going to be like, oh, geez, here we go. Is this going to be another Connor Hellebuck game? And I do agree to the sentiment that, look, not all of this is just on Connor Hellebuck. I think the team in front of him has played pretty bad, specifically in these last couple of games. Imagine how bad they're going to play and how defensive they're going to try and play, and maybe a little too much so if Hellebuck gives up the first goal.
Hey, by the way, Winnipeg not anywhere close to Detroit. It's a little closer to like Minnesota, North Dakota.
Well, Detroit is East Coast.
Huh?
Detroit is considered like the Eastern time zone.
They are. Aren't they
Winnipeg.
in the East time zone?
Yeah, they are. They're considered
they're in the
Eastern
Eastern
time
Conference.
Zone, Minnesota is Central
really
time
close,
zone.
But I just like,
look, man, Detroit's here,
my
Minnesota's
map
here.
looks a little different than yours.
Hey,
Clearly. You should have a map in your family room like I do.
Hey,
then you know.
Winnipeg is closer to Detroit than California. So you're almost right.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
You know what?
You said it's not West, or you thought it was West Coast. It's not California. It's Detroit.
Yeah, it's not as close to Seattle as it is Detroit, is the point that I was making, ladies and gentlemen.
Winnipeg, Canada, as we all know.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can always check us out on YouTube at youtube.com/101ESPN STL. Alex, is an update from Blues practice, I believe.
Sorry to cut you off there. I got really excited. Yes, Lou Korak says that practice is underway. Everyone's there except Thomas, Shen, and no Tyler Tucker.
Okay.
Thomas and Shen, load management, which makes a lot of sense. No Tucker tells you.
Load management as well, probably.
Because he can't put any load on his foot. Yes, that's exactly true.
All right, so that's your update from Blue Skate. We'll try to get an update from Jim Montgomery afterwards. We do want to hear, though, from a Winnipeg Jets sports radio show. I was, again, listening to a lot yesterday, and I wanted to hear what's the reaction from their side of things. How are they looking at where things are at as the series goes back to Winnipeg for game number 5? I think you guys are going to want to hear this. I got a caller, and I've got a couple of rants from the host up in Winnipeg. It was hard to find, Alex. They're very nice people up there in Canada.
Up by Detroit.
Yeah, up by Detroit. We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday, the Cardinals lost the series opener to the Cincinnati Reds by a score of 3-1. Those two teams are back in action tonight with first pitch at 5:40. As for the Blues, they did their job at home and even the series 2-2. They are on ice at the Centene Community Ice Center right now, taking practice, and then they're heading to Winnipeg for Game 5 tomorrow night. Pre-game show right here on 101 ESPN will be at 7:30, and then puck drop will be at 8:30. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So yesterday, Alex, I spent a little bit of time listening to Winnipeg Sports Radio, which is not as easy to find as you would expect. So they shut down their main sports radio station, but they do have a spot that has like a midday sports show, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I took a listen to. And yesterday, it's the one place that you can find where people in Winnipeg actually get upset, apparently. Because everywhere else in Canada is super nice and everybody is generally happy. And they're like, I don't know if they'll be able to come back or not. We'll see.
Oh, but you know what? You should have them at Tim Hortons, eh?
But sports radio is the one place where you can always expect, people are going to get upset. So I took a listen, and they had a couple of callers. There was one that was very mad at Connor Hellebuck, and their host on the station basically lost his mind for portions of it. So let's start out with the caller on why the Jets should bench Connor Hellebuck going into game number 5.
Really good goalie in the regular season. Perfect. You can't complain of spec, but every year the playoffs come, and he just lets tear. His numbers are like over 4 goals a game. He needs to get pulled. Tonight should be Comrie's game, because if they don't win, they're gonna go back to St. Louis. They can't even handle the crowd. They're so shaky in the playoffs. The whole team, especially him. The crowd's too loud. They won't even be able to. They'll be out in 6 games if they don't put Comrie in.
You could be out in 6 games if you put Comrie in. Look, I think that is a load of BS to pull Hellebuck for this game, and I'd play him in game number 6 because this dude is under contract until 2031.
My God.
He is the best goaltender in the National Hockey League in the regular season. The only reason the Winnipeg Jets are in the playoffs are because of Connor Hellebuck. And you're going to pull a dude who's under contract for 6 more years because he's had a couple of bad games. There's no freaking way I do that unless you're going to trade Hellebuck in the offseason. You want to trade him in the offseason, go for it.
I think that guy might be willing to do that because
Fine, but
he's not
got
a playoff performer.
He's got a no-move clause, so it's not happening.
Oh,
but
that's a shame.
You go down with your best option. And if you put Eric Comrie in net for Game 5 and lose, and then go back to Hellebuck in Game 6, or keep Comrie in for Game 6 and lose in Games 5 and 6 because of it, not only are people going to be complaining about Connor Hellebuck, they're going to be complaining about the coach and Scott Arniel.
You can't make this move in Game 5. Game 6, I think there should be legitimate conversations if you're the Jets. If you lose Game 5 at home and Hellebuck is one of the primary reasons that it goes awry for you, you go into Game 6, coming off of these 3 games, especially the 2 here in St. Louis, and you have his history on the road, I don't think they will make the switch because of what you said. You can't lose him mentally for not just right now, but for years to come. Mm-hmm. You can't make the switch probably. I think it's at least a fair question to ask at that point in time. It's not a fair question right now as they're going back home because he's been so good at home for the most part.
And as much as like the gamesmanship, I probably would consider it, but look, if I'm going to go down, if I'm Scott Arniel, I'm going down with a dude who's going to be the MVP of the league and win the best goaltender in the National Hockey League.
All right, so this is what the host had to say on the Winnipeg Sports Radio show as he was asked about Connor Hellebuck and the opportunity to make the switch in net.
Hellebuck has to start Game 5. You need him desperately. But if they get down, you got to make a change for just to make a change for the sake of it. And Eric Comrie should go in. To me, you can see it in the net. He's not playing. He's playing unassertive, And you can't tell me that you're not seeing different body language from him over these last couple of games than you have from the regular season. I'm noticing it. I'm sure you are too.
This I agree with. Now, he gives up 1 goal and I pull Hellebuck. If you get down by 3, if he gives up 3 goals on like 12 shots, yeah, I pull him. I'm not going to let this get to 4 goals, 5 goals, 6 goals. I pull him if it's close. And Connor Hellebuck should understand that because you can't let this game get out of reach if you're the Jets.
Yeah. What is that point? That's what I think is really interesting is where do you decide, okay, now is the moment?
Yeah.
Because, you want to have a quick hook with them, similar to a starting pitcher, right? You get into the playoffs and you've got to get your guy out of there before it starts to snowball on you. But also, how do you know when that moment has taken place? Like, is it 3 goals? Is it 4? At what point is it too much?
Well, I guess you have to ask the coach that. I mean, Scott Arniel's comments after Game 3 was we were down by 3 goals and that game was over. So if his mindset is you get down by 3 goals, you can't let him be in net if he's going to give up a 3-goal lead. Because if that's the case, if you're down 2-0 and you're worried Hellebuck looks a little shaky, you either pull him or you hope that your team can figure it out. But if that's the mindset of the coach, it's why we talked about how I kind of think Winnipeg's broken right now because the coach's mindset is a little bit of a losing mindset. So I would imagine the hook's going to be 3 goals. If you give up 3 and you're Hellebuck, then I think you're probably going to want to get Comrie in there.
All right, last thing on this from Winnipeg Sports Radio. I was listening to one of their shows yesterday, and the host opened up the show by talking about the pressure that is on this team right now, Alex. We've discussed this from the outside looking in. This is the Winnipeg perspective on how those fans are viewing Game 5.
Game 5 is the most defining game. And again, I do not say this lightly. Enough has been invested. There's been enough patience. It's time to put up or shut up. And it starts in Game 5. This is enough. This is enough. Neil Pionk after Vegas talked about how embarrassed the team was after they got bounced. What was the feeling after the series in Colorado?
Well, here's the
falling
beauty
into
of it.
Listen, it's 2-2. The trap is being set again. Don't fall into it. Figure it out.
It's like hosting a show with BK over here. Jesus. I won't let him talk. Look, this Winnipeg Jets team lost 4 games on home ice out of the 4 Nations break. Overall in the regular season, they were the best team on home ice. I think they only lost 7 in regulation, and one of them was to the Blues, by the way. He's absolutely correct. If Winnipeg loses Game 5, 3-2, 2-1, it's an overtime loss, Winnipeg knows they're going back to St. Louis where Connor Hellebuck is shaky, and they also know that this team has been swept after winning 1 game in the last 2 postseasons. So in their mind, this is unwinnable if you have to go back to St. Louis for Game 6 in a do-or-die situation. They have to win Game 5. If they don't, Winnipeg's done in 6.
You as a Blues fan right now are in the best position.
Absolutely.
This is the best spot to be in as a fan. You came into this thing with very low expectations. It was already found money. Get into the playoffs, that's found money. Anything you do from there, gravy. They won a couple of games at home, gives you all the confidence in the world moving forward. Army's plan is working. You're on the right path, and they're doing this without Dylan Holloway. Imagine what the team would look like if they had Dylan Holloway in there right now. So, all of this, it's just so much fun to watch. And every game that you see them win is like this extra shot of dopamine, right? Mm-hmm. There's no, when you win and you're the expected team to win, it's like, it's just relief. Like, oh my God, thank God they advanced. Think about how terrible it would have been if they would have lost that series. That's the feeling come off of those games. This is the opposite. Next year, you'll start to have some of those feelings again, where it'll come back to you, you're like, okay, yeah, we expected to get here. The anticipation is getting to the second round or the Western Conference Finals. That's where those expectations come in. But right now, the Jets are there, where it is, oh boy, we have reached this place so many times before. It's honestly not all that dissimilar from the 2010s Blues before they ultimately got that cup in 2019, where every postseason it's like, all right, how are we going to screw it up this time? Who's going to be the one that just flicks us down this time around? And the Jets are in that spot. They don't know how to get to the next level. It's got to be Connor Hellebuck that takes them to that place. And once again, he is the thing that they're talking about in Winnipeg that is letting them down in the playoffs. So the pressure is so far and away on that side of things. it's almost tough to comprehend.
I'd argue that even if Winnipeg wins Game 5, the Blues are still going to be in the driver's seat because this team plays better when their backs are against the wall. Like, if they're facing elimination in Game 6, you're coming back home where you've been unbelievable this season, so that you'd give them the upper hand. And now you're talking about one game where you have to win in Winnipeg, Game 7, the advantage to the goalie, the advantage to the coach. Like, to me, I don't know if the Blues are ever really in the pressure cooker.
And to that point, the Blues can already say, even if they were to lose in Game 6 coming home, their season was a success.
Absolutely.
I mean, the fact that they even made this a series, and even if they didn't, even if they got swept, I still think you would define the St. Louis Blues 24-25 season as a success. So, yeah, they have been playing with house money for the entire first round. Meanwhile, in Winnipeg, to your guys' point, man, the moment you lose that first game, everybody starts to ask that question. And honestly, having 2 days off before you play the next game, oh my gosh, if BK was enjoying Winnipeg radio today, guess what? It's going to be the same thing today, and then it's going to be the same thing tomorrow in anticipation for that game. Like, they are living in a pressure cooker right now in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and you're Connor Hellebuck, you're just sitting with all of the noise.
Yeah.
All of the noise right now in Winnipeg is, well, you can't win these games. You should put Comrie in. And if you're Hellebuck, you give up, God forbid he gives up the first shot on goal, and it's a goal, Hellebuck might be broken. So if you're Winnipeg, you play tighter in front of him. And how many times have we seen the Blues try and play tighter in front of a goalie because they know the goalie's struggling?
Yep.
That typically causes more turnovers than when you're playing loose and free.
Because now everybody's feeling tight. Everybody feels like they're going to be the one that makes the mistake that ends up in their own end. And instead, like, the Blues right now are playing very loose. And it's structured, right? But they're playing with freedom is probably the better way to describe it from me. It's just such a contrast right now in styles, and it shows you, it is a stark reminder of what pressure can do to you in these situations. The Blues are almost this, and they're not all that young as a team, but they have a lot of young guys littered throughout the lineup. But it almost feels like one team is like too young to realize what they're going up into right now, and the other team is like so battle tested that all they can feel is the pressure of what the situations is that they're currently in. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. In 15 minutes, we'll talk about what Gabe Vilardi's return to the lineup means for the St. Louis Blues and how the Blues can then match up against that top line from Winnipeg. We'll talk about that in 15 minutes. Questions and answers is next here on BK and Ferrario.
live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's Questions and Answers on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. From the 314, guys, it would be so cool to see this series go to Game 7 and the Blues win up in Winnipeg. What is your updated prediction on how you see this series going down?
I still say Blues in 6. Said it from the get-go. I think they win Game 5, and to me, Game 5 is going to be a really tight game. You're not going to see a blowout. And then it comes back to St. Louis, and I think at that point, Winnipeg's going to be a defeated group.
I've switched my tone because I originally think I said Winnipeg in 6. I am now Blues in 6. I think they've broken Hellebuck. I don't think Hellebuck's going to get stopped. And when you look at everything for the Blues, they're winning every battle right now, 5-on-5. They've shut down the top line, special teams, goaltending. Like, they're winning at everything right now.
I'm going to do this for me and for all of you. I'm going to take the Jets in 7. That is my updated prediction.
You know it doesn't work, though, when you don't believe it.
I kind of do, and we're going to talk about this in the next segment. Gabe Vilardi, I think, is a pretty significant factor in this series. They're going to get Logan Stanley's coming back for Game 5 as well. Vilardi adds some scoring punch on the power play. I do think that the Jets are just a flat-out different team at home. We've seen that all year long, and
around there.
We saw it in the first couple of games of this series as well. So this is still a task, man. It's not going to be an easy thing. I didn't think the Blues were going to win Game 4, though. So I was dead wrong about that. I could absolutely be dead wrong about this as well. But I'll take the Jets in 7. No shot against the Blues. They played an unbelievable series. And if you just go based on what we've seen in the first 4 games, I totally get taking the Blues. They've been the better team thus far. But
congrats, St. Louis.
I'll take the Jets in 7.
I can't believe this guy.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 314, guys, what have you thought of Willson Contreras' recently improved play at the plate? Are we going to see him get back to his typical form by the end of the year? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, look,
he's batting like 380 in his last 15 games or something crazy.
The baseball card, I mean, they always rebound back to what the back of the baseball card says, right? Like, he's going to be the same guy we typically expect from Willson Contreras. I'll tell you the part that I've been more impressed by is his defense at first base. I was not expecting him to be as good as he has been. So the offense I know is going to come for Willson Contreras. I think he's going to be a guy who can hit 20 home runs. He can give you, 65 to 75 RBIs. And from there, the defense is the part that I'm most impressed with.
Yeah, I think he will bounce back. I don't know if he will get to that next level like I thought he was going to coming into the year. I thought he was going to be a guy that could do like what his brother did and become an MVP candidate potentially, because I thought he was going to have a massive year because he could stay healthy. But this slow start, he's just not going to get there. But he will be where he's normally been, about an 800 OPS. I don't have any doubts about that.
The funny thing is you look at it, and really it was just a bad 10-game stretch. Like, that's what we're talking about here for Willson Contreras. And every player in baseball, for the most part, will go through a rough 10-game stretch at some point over the course of the season. In his last 16 games, he's batting 300 with an OPS of 830.
I think he's on a 10-game hit streak, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's been really good ever since that road series against Pittsburgh. I think he's going to be fine. He could even get to what you're talking about, T-Bone. Like, it's possible he could still put up numbers at that level despite what he did in the first 10 games of the season. The tough part for him was just the timing of it.
Yeah.
Having that as the beginning point means that it's really hard for you to dig out of that hole as you continue along. It'll take like a really good month, not just a good 15
Here's a fun question for you, because this guy's having a bounce back season. Who ends up with better numbers? The guy that started off slow or the guy that started off hot? Willson Contreras or Paul Goldschmidt?
I have not looked at what Paul Goldschmidt's done recently.
Whoa. No, Goldie is on fire.
Oh, is he?
Goldie is back to prime Goldie. 361, 412, 463.
I don't think Goldie cools off. I think that's Paul Goldschmidt, and last year was just a bad year. I think getting away, going to a new area, less pressure, I think that's going to be Goldie, so I'd say Goldschmidt.
It is interesting. 1 home run on the season. 8 doubles, 1 home run so far this year. So that, like, The serious power, not necessarily there, but he's back to hitting all of the line drives.
Yeah.
And that's when Paul Goldschmidt is at his best, is just hitting line drives all over the field. So I think you probably end up seeing pretty similar numbers for both players, to be totally honest with you. But right now, he's starting from such a hot point that I would go with Goldschmidt.
I agree.
3-1. Here's another question. Who ends up with better numbers at the end of the season, Donovan or Goldie?
I would bank on Goldie.
Yeah, mine's Goldie.
I would go Donovan on that.
Look, I hate to be the one that BK was all like negative on the Blues. I'll be all negative on the Cardinals. It's justified for them. I don't think Donovan's going to sustain this. I still think he's more of a 5-6 hole hitter who has good numbers, but not great numbers. Right now, he's got incredible freaking numbers. We're talking about him being an all-star last year.
Average now.
Yeah. Like, he's going to fall down to more 270, 280 range.
Maybe. We'll see. He's not walking very much. Guys are willing to go in and get into the zone against him, which is an interesting place to be because he's like, cool, I'll go ahead and take advantage.
Everyone right now is probably still like, yeah, this Brendan Donovan can't last. We're like, crap, I shouldn't have done that.
It just keeps happening. All right, he's Alex's T-Bone on BK. Coming up next, Gabe Vilardi appears to be returning to the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets. What does that mean for the Blues? How do they handle him on that top line with Connor and Scheifele? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
It's time for a Blues playoff report presented by English Sweep Fireplace and Chimney Restoration. Schedule your chimney inspection at EnglishSweep.com.
Alongside Alex and T1 on BK. So, Alex, it was that Scheifele line that really put an end to the Blues' chances while this series was in Winnipeg. They outscored the Blues at 5-on-5, 3-0 while this series was there. They high danger chance them 3-1 while they were on the ice at 5-on-5. Then the series moved to St. Louis, and the Blues were able to basically take that line away. The Blues at 5-on-5 outscored the Scheifele line 3-0 over the past two games at 5-on-5. They outshot them 9-5 at 5-on-5, and high danger chances were 5-2 in favor of the Blues while the Scheifele line was on the ice. Two high danger chances in the last two games for Scheifele and Connor while they were on the ice. The reason I bring this up is because, man, that's going to be a key the rest of the series, and it's not going to be any easier. Yesterday, Scott Arniel, the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, was asked at his press conference about Gabe Vilardi, the third piece typically during the regular season for that top line, and whether or not he's going to be back for game number 5.
Scott, see Gabriel out on the ice again today. Will he take part in full practice tomorrow like he did on Saturday?
Yeah, he was in full on, I know you guys maybe weren't down there, but he was full on our last practice before game 4. So that's why he was in warm-up. He's cleared to go.
Yeah, so, okay. So he's
cleared to go. Yeah, he was cleared to go for yesterday's game.
Yeah. Is he physically prepared to jump into normal duties like top line?
If he's prepared, if he's cleared to go, then it's all in.
First of all, I don't like Scott Arniel. I just want to say that.
I have a question. Did he say he was cleared for game 4 and he didn't play?
Correct.
Yeah. He was cleared for it. They just chose not to, which I understand that. Give him extra 2 days. You're still up 2-1 in that series.
Sure, you're up 2-1. You had no momentum going into game 4.
Yeah, but you also get 2 extra days for Gabe Vilardi to make sure that if he was close to 100% there, you get more.
I know
of it.
Winnipeg doesn't have a sports radio station. They should have blasted him if he wasn't playing him in game 4.
I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, I understand
I think you
that
gotta
decision.
play him. I think if your guy is healthy to go, you play him.
Cleared and ready to go are different things.
Well, and
he was medically cleared to play in the game, and then it becomes a coaching staff and player decision as to whether or not you're actually ready.
Well, and also he only shed his no-contact jersey for one skate. Like, he was cleared. He shed it on Saturday, took contact at least 3-on-3 drills, and then they were going to play him on Sunday. Typically, you want to see how they react to those contact drills the next day. And then from there, you're probably thinking, let's give 2 more. Because here's the thing, and this is why I disagree with Scott Arniel. If he's cleared to go, he's cleared to go. He's ready to go. Fine. But you don't replicate the same type of hits you're going to take in a game versus in practice. And that's why I'm not thinking Gabe Vilardi is going to have the impact that people think. He's not going to be this savior that steps in and Winnipeg's like, we finally got him back. He's not going to be as effective as he was in the first half of the season.
I think that's the hope for the Blues because, man, was Gabe Vilardi effective. This is a guy that this season scored 27 goals in 71 games. Last year was even better by a rate statistic standpoint. 47 games played, 22 goals scored. Alex, this is a player that we had talked about a couple of years ago. He was available by the LA Kings. They end up getting him in Winnipeg in that big, massive deal that the Kings immediately regretted making.
Stupid deal.
But we talked about him as, hey, is this somebody that the Blues should try to target via trade? He was at that point like a third-line center for the Kings. Now he's playing a decent amount on the wing, especially on that top line. This makes the job that much more difficult for the St. Louis Blues going up against Kyle Connor, up against Scheifele, and now Vilardi. Vilardi changes things at 5-on-5. He is also a key component to what they're doing on the power play. Yeah. He has been their top guy in that regard. 12 goals this year on the power play, a unit that's really struggled in this series and went from the #1 power play in the NHL when Vilardi was out there to when he got hurt. They've been middle of the pack, bottom 10 in the league since he went down with this injury. So his return is a huge factor in this series. How do you think the Blues go about matching up against that top line now as we go back to Winnipeg?
This is why I actually think it's it's not advantageous for the Blues, but they're ready for this because they just experimented on home ice with different lines playing against that Scheifele line. They had the Schenn line matched up against them for game number 3 for a majority of it, and then the Thomas line went back to match up against them in game number 4. So if you're the Blues and you're Jim Montgomery, that's two lines that you feel confident in. Really, the mismatch comes if the Vilardi line gets out there against your third line. That's what you're thinking we can't have happen. But you're comfortable with your WTF. You know the Thomas line can do it, and you just saw the Schenn line in game number 3 with their matchup. Here's the thing, though, man. Gabe Vilardi is lethal on the power play. That's where he is a difference maker. To me, Gabe Vilardi's not a difference maker at even strength. He opens up the play for Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. But the thing about it, and I did this on Natural Stat Trick, from the Four Nations break until the end of the regular season for Winnipeg, he played 15 games with them, then got injured with that upper body injury. They were actually worse with Vilardi on that line in terms of allowing scoring chances versus scoring chances than when they had Iafallo on that line. So this team is very good in the offensive zone if they get the momentum and they start cycling the puck, and they could beat you there.
So it's like when Kyrou goes up to the top line.
Yeah, you're awesome offensively, but you're a liability. So in the 15 games that they played against each other, they had a 48% Corsi rating, which measures puck possession, but they allowed 100 scoring chances for, and they allowed 38 high-danger scoring chances for. Now, they did score more, or have more high-danger chances for with Vilardi on that line, but they only had 96 scoring chances. And then when Iafallo went there, it was 81-74, 34-25. So again, they can create offense. Vilardi's a guy that allows Kyle Connor to create space and get those lethal shots off. But what they also do is they can get bit in the defensive zone for how aggressive they are offensively.
Somebody on the YouTube chat, Bobby Bowe, says, guys, he hasn't played a game in more than a month. That's something worth considering here. And it reminds me of the Parayko situation, where Parayko was out for so long, and you think immediately, like, oh, we're getting the Parayko back that we just saw. He was such a good player by the Blues. Yes, he was amazing for the Blues before that injury, but he got hurt.
Yes.
And players don't typically come back and just immediately become the same players that they were prior to that injury. So I don't know what version of Gabe Vilardi we're going to see in this series. He's going to have that shot. Like, that shot on the power play is probably the biggest thing that he's going to bring to this series. And it's something that the Blues have to keep in mind. Like, I don't think that you play any more tentative or hesitant or anything like that. You play your game, but it does make you think twice if there's a potential penalty situation. Like, you have really got to stay out of the box now. That is going to be critical in Game 5.
Because now they got those two one-timers on one unit.
Exactly.
Now you've got Connor on one side, Vilardi on the other. It's kind of what the Blues have with Snuggerud, Bolduc, and Pavel Buchnevich. Like, you've got threats on both sides, and now you have to play the penalty kill a little bit differently. But, to me, if I'm Jim Montgomery, we're talking about discipline in this series now.
Definitely.
Now you need the emphasis is on, hey, Bolduc, hey, Neighbors, like, you can't be making those same mistakes that we've made in games 2, 3, and 4 of taking that extra hack. Now they've got a weapon, because if you keep them at 5-on-5, they're probably hoping that they get some power play opportunities because it's struggled so much. But, man, the Blues have been one of the most disciplined teams in the National Hockey League this season. Specifically after the Four Nations break, they took the fewest penalties in the National Hockey League. To get them off of their game immediately, and how you make Vilardi ineffective. Either way works for me. You keep them off the power play, you stay disciplined, and you start throwing bodies at Vilardi.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Coming up next, we'll play a game of Bet It or Forget It at 12:30. We've got Bruce Boudreau. We're going to ask him what he thinks the Vilardi return to the lineup means for this series. Does he change at all how the Blues can go up against that top line? Jim Montgomery saying just moments ago that Tyler Tucker is day-to-day with that injury that he sustained in game number 4. He did add that he will not be available for Game 5 in Winnipeg. So as we expected, day-to-day is the update. But the real notable news there, Tyler Tucker, according to Jim Montgomery, not available for Game 5 in Winnipeg. That's a big one, man. It's not... it's not your top-line player. It's not Parayko, something like that. But Tyler Tucker had made a real impact on this series with his shot and with his physicality in their own end. That is something that the Blues are going to miss. They're going to need Ryan Suter to step back up and reemerge in this series. Coming up next, Bet It or Forget It here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about Classic Air Care, who is here to help you maintain your HVAC system. They've been making people comfortable since 1925, and when it comes to Classic Air Care's work, you get the technicians, you get the customer service that keeps those older units continuing for you. Or if you're in the market for a new one, they've got the technicians that can come out and get you the best deal when it comes to purchasing your new HVAC system. And the big thing, of course, with your HVAC, whether it's old or new, is all about the maintenance that you put into it, making sure that you're changing the filter, making sure that you're getting it checked out, cleaning it, the preventative care that makes it last a long time. And I didn't realize this when we moved into our old home. You know, and when we had Classic Air Care come out back in 2016, I showed them the 25-year-old unit that we had, and they explained, like, look, just keep it cleaned twice a year, make sure we're out here, making sure it's good to go, and it will last you a little bit longer. And lo and behold, we lasted 4 more years before we moved out of that house, and that unit was taken care of. They've got a furnace filter program over at Classic Air Care where you sign up for it, and each month they mail it to you, so it reminds you that you got to change your filter. But on top of that, the maintenance agreement that they have, the financing options that they have for a new unit, all of it over at Classic Air Care. Schedule online. Just do me a favor and tell them Alex Ferrario sent you. Classic Air Care and ClassicAirCare.com.
Broadcasting live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Vegas sets him up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Presented by Circus Sports Illinois. Sports betting the way it should be.
is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are betting it or forgetting it here on 101 ESPN. All right, Alex, each of the 4 series in the Western Conference were tied at 2 games apiece going into last night. Now, Dallas leads 3-2 against the Colorado Avalanche. Bet it or forget it, every one of these first-round series in the Western Conference will go to 7.
Bet it. The one that I can see not going to 7 would be Vegas and Minnesota. But I think home ice has just been a dominant factor into these games, specifically in the Western Conference. You saw Dallas run Colorado out of the arena last night. I think you're going to see all Western Conference games go 7. And I also think, to add on to this, I think you're going to see 3 Eastern Conference games end by Game 6.
Oh, I think I agree with that. I think potentially all of them.
Yeah, I think Toronto's going to end it. I think Carolina's going to end it. And I also think Florida's going to end it.
I think the Capitals are going to end theirs.
I think Montreal might come back into that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like Montreal's depth. I know Washington's just kind of been out there dominant, but I think Montreal can get back in with another home game.
I'm going to bet this, by the way. I think all of these end up going to 7 games.
I'm going to forget it. I think Dallas will close it out in 6, and I think the Blues will win in 6. Vegas, Minnesota, I agree with. I actually lean towards, I know Edmonton got back in the series. They made a goaltending change, flipped that series on its head at home ice. I still don't buy Edmonton, so I say 3 of the 4 end in 6 games.
Alex, what do you got for us?
Guys, bet it or forget it. We see the Blues defensemen continue their offensive output in the next 2 games, and we see 2 defensemen score goals.
When you say offensive output, are you saying like the same kind of shots
Put
on
up
net,
5 plus points, offensive
I'll say
output, getting shots on goal?
I think the series is going to get into a lower scoring situation. I think we start seeing the goalies perform the way that we expected coming into this series, and you see more of like your typical 3-2, 2-1, those kinds of games over the next few. So I'll say forget it. I'm going to
bet it. I don't know if this series tightens up. I mean, we talked about that here in St. Louis, thinking maybe it would in 3 and 4, and it really didn't. And it just goes to how much do you trust Hellebuyck? Because we can talk about it tightening up defensively all we want. If Hellebuyck's not going to stop the puck, then it's not going to matter. And I think the Blues are at his head. He's broken. So I'm going to say bet this. I think you're going to see the Blues defensemen score 2 goals, and they'll have their shot attempts there.
I'm betting this one as well. I think you're going to see Colton Parayko jump into the rush like we've been seeing. And the guy I'm still warning people to watch out for is Philip Broberg. I mean, that dude has just kind of been like a silent assassin right now. He hasn't been putting up points. He's just been offensively trying to get pucks on. We saw in the Stanley Cup final last year, when he gets one, he goes off on a little bit of a tear.
I think he's been really good in this series,
I do, too.
by the way.
I think he's been one of those guys that you don't even notice he's on the ice for how good he's been skating, which I made this comp earlier in the season. I mean, it's kind of like what Jay Bomeister is in terms of how well he skates and how quiet he is on the in the game.
T-Bone?
Guys, bet it or forget it. Tommy Tanks Edman will hit more home runs than Nolan Arenado this season.
Ooh. Bet it. Doesn't he already have like
Edman's
8?
got 8. His career high is 13. Arenado last year hit 16 and is currently at 3.
Yeah, I think
I'll say bet it. I think this is right.
I think Edman's going to be like 15 to 20 this year.
The funny thing about Edman is that's all he's doing.
I know.
His batting average in line with what it's been. His on-base percentage actually a little lower than what it's been for the majority of his career. He's just selling out for power right now. And I'm not telling you that's the wrong thing to do. It's just a different player than what we've seen for most of his career. So I'll say bet it. I do think he ends up with more home runs than Arenado this season. Just a weird profile for Tommy Edman.
I agree. I would bet this as well. I think he's going to get to 20 for the first time in his career. And I think Arenado's going to be behind him. I don't know if Arenado's going to get to like 25, and I think that's what it's going to be for him to beat him this year.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Bet It or Forget It. Guys, Bet It or Forget It, by the way, in 5 minutes or so, we'll be joined by Bruce Boudreau. So we'll go through just a couple of these. Bet It or Forget It, the top home run hitter for the Cardinals this season will have fewer than 25 home runs by the end of the year.
Top home run for the Brewers?
For the Cardinals.
Oh, for the Cardinals.
I might have said Brewers, but if I did, I apologize.
I'll bet this one. I don't think you're going to see somebody with more than 25 home runs.
I think I'm going to bet it as well because I think Contreras is going to get to like his slow start makes me skeptical of this. So I think he's the only guy that can do it, and Herrera's hurt. So yeah, I'll bet it.
The problem is Herrera got hurt. I think Herrera would have done this had he been healthy, and he still leads the Cardinals. He's tied for the team lead in home runs right now.
Wow.
Gorman's the real one here. Like, Gorman was supposed to be your home run hitter. He has 1. Now, he could go through a week where he hits 5. We've seen this happen before with him, but I'm going to have to bet it. I just don't see anybody right now that is likely to end up there, which is a disappointment compared to what I expected. It's more in line with what T-Bone said coming into the season. He didn't know where the power was coming from, and we haven't seen it thus far. Guys, bet it or forget it. The Cardinals are 10 games behind the Cubs by the end of the month of May. Bet it or forget it. Cardinals end up ending the month of May at least 10 games behind the Cubs. Right now, they are 5 games back of Chicago. Chicago, by the way, has played the fewest teams so far in Major League Baseball that are under 500 this season.
Dude, Chicago's winning the NL Central, and good luck getting into the playoffs other than that.
Chicago this month has Pittsburgh. They've got Miami twice, the White Sox, the Reds, and they've got the Rockies as well to finish out the month. I'm going to say about this.
Boy, what a friendly schedule that is.
And you actually, you play, and this may not be a narrative because of the Ryan Fernandez factor like we opened up, but you play a lot of games on the road in the month of May. Like you play in Washington, you play in Philly, you play in Kansas City. The only home games you've got
as well.
You got home games against the Mets, which Pirates, and then you got it against the Tigers.
Yeah.
And the Diamondbacks, which
I would bet this. I think you'll be 10 games plus back behind the Cubs. They look legit. So, yeah, bet this.
All right, coming up next, Bruce Boudreau, former NHL head coach, want to get his thoughts on how the Blues can combat the Gabe Vilardi return to the lineup, what that return means for the Jets as this series returns home to Winnipeg for them, and what has he made of the Blues' ability to get those defensive shots on net and what that has done to Connor Hellebuck in this series. Bruce Boudreau next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Blues are headed back to Winnipeg with the series tied 2-2. You can hear Game 5 right here on 101 ESPN. Pregame is at 7:30 tomorrow night, and then puck drop is at 8:30. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline to be joined by former NHL head coach Bruce Boudreau, joining us here on BK and Ferrario. Also does some work for NHL Network. I watched some of his breakdowns last night, Alex, that he was doing on the Blues versus the Jets series. Kind enough to join us via the Callier and Thompson hotline here on BK and Ferrario. Bruce, we appreciate the time, man. It's been a lot of fun to watch this series, the adjustments that we've seen from both sides through the first 4 games. What's been your biggest takeaway from the first 4 games of Blues versus Jets?
Well, and thanks for having me, guys. But I think the way that the Blues just keep coming at you, and I think what they've done now is the first 2 games they didn't win, but Winnipeg won in the last 5 minutes of the first game. The second game goes to overtime. The third game, I think that now it's started. You're just wearing them down. They're hitting everybody in sight. They're not passing up a check, and I think just Winnipeg's not used to this kind of play, and they wore them down in Game 3. They wore them down in Game 4, and it's going to be real interesting to see how the game plays out in Game 5, because St. Louis hasn't changed the way they're playing, and Winnipeg is going, hey, will they slow down? Just give us a break here, and St. Louis is not doing that.
Bruce, you've got phenomenal breakdown both on NHL Network and Sportsnet, and I, too, was watching a lot of this last night. The part that we've talked so much about in St. Louis is the adjustments that Jim Montgomery has made from games 1 and 2 going into 3 and 4, and how it doesn't feel like Winnipeg has made adjustments on how the Blues are playing. Have you noticed something that Scott Arniel is trying to do, or are the Blues just eliminating Winnipeg's chances of making adjustments?
I think, quite frankly, they're probably going over tape like crazy in Winnipeg, wondering, what can we do? What can we do? But St. Louis is just, their motor is running all the time. They're getting it deep. They're finishing checks. They're getting to the net. They're playing a very simple game, but at the same time, they're all doing it. And when you're all doing it, and like I think I mentioned yesterday, that when Winnipeg's not blocking shots and they're not getting and they're not doing that, all the play is in front of the net. So I mean, Hallebeck, who hasn't looked good the last 2 games, but he's not getting any help from either the forwards or the defense when it comes to shutting down St. Louis. I mean, or blocking shots. Let's face it, they didn't block any shots in the third period. And I don't know how you can go through a playoff game without blocking a shot. And only the forwards only blocked 3 shots. 2 by Tanev and 1 by somebody else. I think it was Kurt Connors in the first period. That was it. If you don't block shots, then all the players around the front of the net, and the D don't have to worry about, hey, I just got to get it by this guy. They just keep shooting. So unless St. Louis starts to commit, or St. Louis, Winnipeg commits themselves to getting in lanes and making it tough for these guys, then I think the same thing is going to happen tomorrow night.
So I'm curious, Bruce, because I would imagine that is something that Arniel is telling his guys. I can't imagine that he's just completely glossed over it. So is that a commitment thing? Like, the Blues in Game 1 and 2 had 25 shot attempts by their defensemen. They clearly saw something on tape, came back to St. Louis and changed it. They had 50 shot attempts by their defensemen, doubled what they had in the first 2 games when they came back here to home ice. How does Winnipeg take that away heading back to Winnipeg in Game 5?
Well, I think you said the right word is commitment, and I don't think they're looking for quick breaks. Winnipeg can skate, and they've got a lot of skill. But I mean, I liken it almost to Toronto, where Toronto's made such a commitment to change to blocking shots and being tough in front of the net. And you've had Craig before there. You know that's what he's all about. And And so they're making it really tough on the other teams. I don't think Winnipeg has made that adjustment yet, and they better make that adjustment pretty soon, or the same thing is going to happen. They're going to get a lot of shot attempts. There's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of screens. And, I mean, if the first couple goals go in on Hellebuyck tomorrow night, you know that his confidence is already waning. And, I mean, the confidence on the Blues, whether we should switch them up, they can't switch them up again. If you do it 3 times in 3 games, then all of a sudden you may as well not play him anymore because his confidence will be so bad. So, but if I'm St. Louis, I'm doing the same thing until they prove to me that I got to do something different. And that's how I would come at them. I would shoot everything, finish every check, not go by anything, and still be tough to play against because I don't think Winnipeg likes that.
So, Bruce, on that perspective, I mean, we've noticed that as well. It does seem like Connor Hellebuyck looks a little shook right now in between the pipes. From a coach's perspective, what do you do with that moving forward? Obviously, they're putting the faith in Hellebuyck still. Scott Arniel said he's our guy. We've got no concerns. But there has to be a little bit of concern in that locker room, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's Scott's got concern, but I mean, you're not going to publicly say, "Hey, I think our goalie who's going to win the Vezina again is really worried about playing." I mean, you're not going to be a negative factor. I mean, if anything, he's taking him aside, putting his arm around him and say, "You're the best goalie in the world. Let's go to it." But if I'm him, I'm taking the captain aside and say, "Hey, listen, we got to protect the goalie a little bit. He's protected our ass. I mean, all year long when we've needed it. Now it's time to get in those lanes, stop the shots, don't allow 20 shots on the game, and keep everything to the outside, and let him gain his confidence again. Because when he gains his confidence, he's as good as there is."
We're talking to Bruce Boudreau here on 101 ESPN, longtime NHL head coach. He's giving us a coach's perspective on the series between the Blues and the Jets. Bruce, the Jets are expected to get a big piece of their lineup back for game number 5. Gabe Vilardi was skating with the team on that first line where he previously was before his injury with Connor and Scheifele. Connor and Scheifele were a thorn in the Blues side in games number 1 and 2. They basically single-handedly won those games for Winnipeg. Game 3 and 4 changed here in St. Louis. Blues shut them down. With Vilardi returning to the lineup, how much does that change how the Blues have to match up with that top line?
Well, I don't think that St. Louis is going to change anything. I mean, if it's like, I mean, to me, they could have won all 4 games already, but I mean, they're being pretty successful the last 2 games. Now, Gabe Vilardi is a pretty good player, so he's an added piece and to their depth. But I wouldn't go out and say, "Hey, listen, this is Connor McDavid. We got to change our whole game plan for Gabe Vilardi." That's just not the way. I don't think it would work. But I would test him to see how healthy he is, and I'd hit him every chance, make him stop, make him start, because he hasn't played in a while. Let's see how his conditioning is and do all of those things. But, I mean, I would keep doing what I'm doing if I'm St. Louis, and I'm sure they will. I'm sure they're not going to change too much up because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Bruce, we've seen a lot of offense in these last couple of games from the Blues defensemen, jumping in on the rush, playing like that 5-man unit. From your perspective, what are they doing so well getting the Blues defensemen activated?
Well, I mean, they're being activated. I mean, they've always got a guy in front of the net. So, I mean, that 4th guy up the ice is coming up all the time. And, I mean, they got guys that can skate. Listen, I had Cam Fowler for 4.5 years. To me, one of the best defensemen you're going to find. Was the best trade deal at the deadline that you can make. You got Parayko back, a guy that I don't know if he scored 20, but he came close to it this year. So, I mean, they've already got offensive defensemen in play. So they're just doing what comes natural to them, and that they're ready to jump. And I think they're beating Winnipeg to the puck when they're coming up the ice. And that 4th man is becoming a really important player on the Blues, and he's getting opportunities. And, like, I mean, I'm saying again, like, I mean, I watch other series, and it is tough to get shots through. I mean, but St. Louis is having no problem. I think if there's any adjustment, that's going to be the adjustment Winnipeg makes is we got to come back to the middle of the ice. Let's leave the outside alone and protect the middle. But the St. Louis defense has done a great job at jumping into the play, and their team has changed so much since Cam Fowler got there.
Last question that I've got for Bruce Boudreau. He's joining us here on 101 ESPN, longtime NHL head coach. Bruce, you've coached against Jim Montgomery in the past. He was in the Central Division with you when you were in Minnesota. What is it about Jim Montgomery, the structure that he puts in place, the style of play that he implements that allows his teams to have so much success?
Well, I mean, he gets everybody playing the right way, the same way. And there's I think the message is very clear that he sends to them, and he wants to play a certain way. He's won championships, whether it's in college or the 62-win season that he had in Boston. But I mean, he knows how to motivate to get the guys to play as hard as they can every game. There's not a lot of games that a Jim Montgomery team takes off. So I mean, when you come to the rink and we're facing Jim, whether he was in Dallas or wherever, you knew that you were in for a tough game, and that's what he does. The guys come to play every night, and I think that's the best trait about it is there's no big swoons in the games when he's coaching. They're not going to lose 9 in a row. So I mean, what you have is you have a team that plays the same every night, and they play hard and they're good, and with that comes success. And I think that's what you're seeing right now.
Bruce, final one from me, and we appreciate the time. You've been in plenty of playoff series in your career as a coach. How critical is a Game 5 in a series like this?
I mean, if you look at it, it's really critical. But I've won Game 5 and then lost 6 and 7 3 times. So,
oh man.
And I can remember them all vividly. So I mean, it's really important. Though you always, any one of those odd numbered games, I mean, that's the game you want to win. And then you got to believe you win Game 5, they're not going to beat you twice in a row. Unfortunately, I haven't had the greatest of luck at that.
Well, now I feel like a jerk, Bruce, for bringing up bad memories. So you know what? I'm going to find something to make this right next time we get you on.
No problem. It's all good. It's all good.
I appreciate
on 2 of them, it was to the team that won the Stanley Cup. So, I mean, you just keep figuring if you had won the 6th or 7th game, and you would have won the Stanley Cup too. So it's as close as you can get without winning it. So, I mean, that's what I hold on to.
Hey, Bruce, it's always great to be able to catch up, man. Thank you so much for hopping on with us today. You're always one of our favorite guests on here. We love watching you over on NHL Network as well. All the best. Enjoy the rest of this series. Hopefully, we'll talk with you again as the Blues continue along in this year's playoffs.
All righty. Good luck for you guys.
Thanks, Bruce.
Appreciate you. That's Bruce Boudreau joining us here on 101 ESPN. Longtime NHL head coach. Always enjoy getting his perspective on the St. Louis Blues. Alex, you look at the Jets and what they have done just in terms of their blocked shots. I love that he brought that up. It's honestly not really something that I had thought a whole lot about. They have 54 blocked shots so far in this series. Now, for what it's worth, the Blues only have 51. So it's not as if the Blues are doing a ton of this, but the difference is where those shots are coming from. If the Blues in the last 2 games are going to have 50 shot attempts from their defensemen, dude, those are shots that need to be blocked.
Yeah.
And so the Jets, meanwhile, they're not activating their defense the same way that the Blues are. So you wouldn't expect the Blues numbers to be quite as high. The Jets are 13th in the playoffs in blocked shots so far. They're going to have to be willing to sacrifice if they're going to get back into this
You
thing.
said they had 54 so far?
54, yes.
So that means 37 of their blocked shots came in Games 1 and Games 2.
Wow. So they had 17 over the last 2 games.
They had a 27. So is that bad math by me? That's bad math by me.
They had how many?
They had 27 so far in the last 2 games. Bad math by me.
So half of them came on the road and half of them came at home. So nothing changed.
Yeah, so bad math by me. That's what happens in this one. Here's the thing, though. They only had 11 blocked shots in game number 3. Yeah, terrible math by me, which totally expected that one. 11 blocked shots in game 3. And that was the game that you did. I mean, that was the game where the Blues put, 4-3 up in the first period, and then from there they just ran away with it the rest of the way. So I think to what Bruce was talking about, when you see certain guys without the blocked shots, specifically in that game number 3 with only 11 of them, if you get them in that position, that also tells me that they're a banged-up group. Sure. Like if you're banged up, you're not wanting to put your body in front of a shot like that, especially when Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele are out there on the
Dude, it
ice.
also just hurts. Like, playoff hockey,
unless you're
hurts.
Walker or Foxa and you just put your face in front of it and you're like, nah, we're fine.
Yeah, and that hurts like hell. Those guys are willing to do it, and that's part of what's allowing the Blues to have success right now, is that they've got a bunch of dudes, to Bruce Boudreau's point, that are willing to play the style that wins in the playoffs. Like, I can't remember who it was yesterday, but I listened to 100 different things. It was somebody on either TSN or Sportsnet up in Canada that said, when you watch the Blues, you're watching a style that wins in the playoffs. Like, if you just stripped the names, stripped everything away from them, and all you were doing was like watching dots on the ice, basically, you'd be like, oh yeah, that looks like playoff hockey to me. They're playing a style that consistently can have success. So the Jets are not right now. The style that they have played over the last 2 games is just not playoff winning hockey. They've got to find a way to turn that thing around. It's still tied. They're in the best of 3 series at this point. But they've got to find a way to do it.
Yeah, and if I'm Jim Montgomery, I'm doing exactly what Bruce just told us. I'm telling my line, finish the checks on Vilardi. Let's see how healthy he is, because that's what you do in the playoffs. When you come back from an injury, that's why they're always like, oh, yeah, he's day-to-day. It's an upper body. It's a lower body. They don't want you to know, but you typically test those guys immediately, and my guess is the Blues are going to be doing that once Vilardi's on the ice.
All right, if you missed any of our conversation with Bruce Boudreau, be sure to check that out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com, and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
In the 1 o'clock hour, we will also be talking with Jeremy Rutherford, our Blues insider, as he's on his way right now up to Winnipeg to cover the Blues versus the Jets tomorrow night. But coming up next, it is time for the junk drawer here on BK and Ferrario.
Alex Ferrario back with you to tell you about my friends out at Rhino Shield, taking care of the exterior of your home or business. And specifically to the business owners out there, RF Meme, MC Mechanical Services, 2 businesses that Rhino Shield has changed the outlook of their business. And what I mean by that is when you drive past some of those buildings, they look old, they look worn down, water stains all over the side of the buildings. But with Rhino Shield's work, they look brand new. And Darren over at Rhino Shield sent me some of the pictures of this new building. Got a new crisp gray color that just pops when you drive past it. That's the work that Rhino Shield provides. And look, when you get a lot of the rain that we're getting here in the spring season, the paint that might be on the exterior of your home, man, that's going to get washed away pretty quickly, and you're going to be painting it again and again and again. Rhino Shield, though, a ceramic coating that is 100% waterproof. It also deflects 90% of the UV rays, which means it resists those chipping, the cracking, and any fading that takes place on Rhino Shield's work. And it's all backed by a 25-year transferable warranty. So if you've got your business, if your home looks old and worn down, then it's time to call Rhino Shield. Schedule online also, 877-25-RHINO. Just tell Darren Alex Ferrario sent you, 877-25rhino.com.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Alex, I think I have figured out what your prehistoric timeline could have been. So,
bleep does that mean?
There are some prehistoric kangaroos that scientists are doing some studies on right now. Some 40,000 years ago, one of these kangaroos from a site in Queensland, they have determined was very much a homebody. Why? Because, well, they're significantly larger than many of their other such sites. And I'm not saying that is why I'm saying...
this is weird.
Time out. I'm not saying that the size of these individuals is why you're similar. It's the homebody part of it. Quote, these gigantic kangaroos were probably just chilling at home, eating the rainforest leaves because there were heaps of them around. That also means the environment was quite stable. It means that over hundreds of thousands of years, these animals decided, staying put, that's probably the best bet. Unfortunately, it was a bad bet in the end because it predisposed them to the risk of extinction when climate changed and increasingly there were problems with the rainforest. And about 280,000 years ago, bada boom, bada bing, they are gone. I just thought that, I'd like to tell you about your predecessors, the gigantic kangaroos that also liked to hang around their house.
Yeah.
George, just get your finger on the dump button right now. What the F just happened? Did you call me fat? Is that what we originally started with?
On accident.
And then from there we were just like, these...
It's somehow the second time I've been in trouble for this so far this week.
Who else did you call fat?
Not on purpose. So...
Here's the real junk drawer. Tell me you didn't do this with your wife.
Earlier this week. We're on our way home from the zoo.
God. And you said, Carrie, you should be more like the kangaroos and eat salad.
I'm already
You're a jerk.
I'm already uncomfortable.
So we're on our way home from the zoo. And again, I promise you, this was not my intention. I understand how it's going to sound.
Shocker,
it was not my intention.
Your tone gets you in trouble a lot.
Yeah. Somebody said BK getting political again, talking about climate change. No, that was not political. It's science.
Sure. That's kind of political statement right there.
Wow.
So we're on our way home from the zoo. We went to the Animals Aglow thing. By the way, awesome event out there at the zoo. Anyways, so there's an awesome event. We come home.
Alex is
probably
going to die off. Yeah, that's essentially what the segment is.
In 280,000 years, to be clear.
Good.
So we're on our way home, and Kara, we have a granola bar that we had brought for Luca, and then he had some Cheez-Its as well. So she eats the granola bar, and then she's starting to work on the Cheez-Its. And I'm like, hey, are you hungry? And she took that as, hey, you fat bleep, why do you continue to eat everything that we brought for Luca? I did not intend for it to be taken that way, obviously. I was just asking, like, are you hungry? We can go grab you something on our way home, or we could make something whenever we get there.
Yeah, but
so that got me into the...
But I can hear the tone now. Like, I'm Kara, and I can hear him turning over and be like, hey, you hungry? Oh, God. I'm always so cautious with this with Katie. Like, I never want
I've learned to be.
Yeah, well, you're still learning, apparently.
Still learning.
The other night, we were, so obviously Easter is past and tons of candy around. And so the other night we're eating dinner, and Katie goes into the pantry, and she pulls out one of those Reese's peanut butter, like, eggs. And she goes in, she comes out, she eats one. And she goes back in, she grabs another one, she eats one. And she goes back in and grabs another one and eats one. And I turned to her, and I'm like, how many of those did you eat? And she goes, what are you saying? I said, no, I'm curious. How many of those are you eating?
See, I'm not alone. It's a problem we've all dealt with at some point.
But I'm careful with the tone on
Somebody from the text line, BK, start using your brain, man. Somebody else said, BK, you don't know the first thing about science or women. Also saw this from Gator over in the YouTube chat. New segment, BK apologizes for his smokeness. All fair.
That could last a while.
No, new segment. BK calls somebody fat because that's essentially what this was.
All learned by me. I apologize to everybody
I
in
have a
advance
question.
for whatever it is that I say that ends up me not coming across the way that I intended.
I have a question because typically the junk drawer leads to
Political or fat jokes?
Well, BK tries to bring politics into the junk drawer.
If you want to talk about
I know.
funding for the zoo that's been slashed.
Oh, my God. Stop it.
My question for you was, what was the headline on this article that you clicked on where, A, it was intriguing enough for you to read, then B, think also when you clicked on it, this could be a junk drawer story?
And C, at what point were when reading through that where you were like, hey, Alex is kind of like these fat kangaroos.
Chilling at home. Giant prehistoric kangaroos preferred to chill at home and didn't like to go out much, scientists say. Sounds like something that I find to be interesting.
And he just connected that immediately to Alex.
Alex doesn't like to do anything, so that's him.
I was curious how you clicked on this article because I was like, how could there be clickbait in this to where he clicked on this and was like, this is the junk drawer?
Alex, sometimes you just end up finding stuff that you find to be interesting about kangaroos.
I don't understand how the narrative of me is I never want to leave. I love going out.
No, you don't.
I just don't like going out with you guys.
Now our text line is just full of political statements. So coming up next, Scott Arniel. We can all agree we don't like him a whole lot.
True.
He was asked if the Jets are feeling the here we go again pressure. We'll let you hear his answer next year on 101 ESPN.
and Ferrario are broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex and T-Bone on BK. So, Alex, yesterday I was listening to Scott Arniel's press conference, the head coach for the Winnipeg Jets. And, man, he's getting a lot of, I think, fair and critical questions up there in Winnipeg as the team returns home heading into game number 5. He was asked about, what about the people that are saying, here we go again? What is your response to that, Scott Arniel? Here's what he had to say.
I don't give a... Never mind. This is the Western Conference. Take a look what's going on around the league. Everybody's tied 2-2. This is how we got here. I mean, as a head coach, I'm not happy about how we got here, but we're here. We're just like everybody else in the West. We're all tied at 2. We played 82 games to get home ice advantage, and now we're in this position. So game 5, we have to be the best team on the ice, and I don't care what's happened in the past. One thing this group has done a fantastic job all year long is move on to the next game, be better. I thought last night, our first 35 minutes, we played a really good game. Our first period was really good. Way better than what we did in Game 3. We played way faster. We put a lot more emphasis getting out of our zone. We did a good job of zone time. Obviously, we made a mistake. We made a mistake at the end of the first, gave up a goal with 23 seconds left, and then the last 3 minutes of the second period. We're in a 2-1 game, and all of a sudden we make a couple mistakes, and those are momentum swings that we have to be more cognizant of and make sure that we handle a little bit better.
Alex, he's not entirely wrong here. I mean, you think about it. In that game, you're 10 minutes into the second period. It's a 1-1 game. Mm-hmm. You're doing exactly what you wanted to coming in, right? Like, you're keeping this into a low-scoring game, 5-on-5. In the first period, the Jets had outplayed the Blues. It was really the first time in this series that the Jets were the better team in a first period. Then you get into the second, and it's kind of back and forth early on. And then eventually Tyler Tucker scores. He makes it 2-1. And then Braden Shen scores. It's 3-1. And then right before the end of the period, Justin Falk adds on. Now it's 4-1, game's over. So it happened really fast where things just snowballed on them to the point where they had no response. And then the third period was once again, for the second time in a row, a formality for the Winnipeg Jets. So he's not entirely wrong. But his beginning statement there is just, and I say this as somebody that can have a little bit of smug attitude in me. It's just so smug of, hey, what would you say to the people here in Winnipeg that have that here we go again feeling? He started his answer with, I don't give a, you know what, never mind. Mm-hmm. Dude, throw the fans a bone there. And he did this when they were back here after Game 4 where he was asked by a Winnipeg Jets beat writer, hey, what can you lean on? That was the question. It's a super simple question. All you have to say there is, we're going home. It's a best of 3. We played all year for the home ice advantage. We've got it. We've got the best fans in the world up in Winnipeg. We've been the best team in the NHL on home ice. We can't wait to return to our fans where we're going to put on a show. We got 2 games at home, guaranteed the rest of this way. We're good to go. We feel like we're in a really good spot. Instead, he said, I'm going to keep that to myself. Like, what? What?
You know what? That's
just a weird spot for him.
You know what it tells me? It's an inexperienced head coach at the NHL level, and goes with the play because he hasn't been a head coach at the NHL level since 2011 and 2012 when he was with the Columbus Blue Jackets. It's not just Scott Arniel, though. You were in the locker room for Mark Scheifele. Scheifele was staring at the ground the entire post-game presser after Game 4 and was basically saying the Blues aren't doing anything, we're doing it to ourselves. Yep. Connor Hellebuyck did not speak to the media until he was back in Winnipeg following getting pulled twice in St. Louis. Your coach came out after Game 3 and said we were down 3-0, the game was over there. This is a broken mindset right now, and that's why Scott Arniel responds that way. It's why people in Winnipeg are panicking a little bit, because it's been the same problem for the last 2 years. The team doesn't know how to stop the snowball from getting bigger as it rolls down the hill, and now Scott Arniel's just throwing more and more snow on top of that snowball. So he should have handled it better, because then it instills a little bit more confidence in your group. Because if you're Mark Scheifele right now, or if you're Adam Lowry and you're the captain of this team, in the back of your mind, you know what the last 2 years have been. You know the inexperience in the postseason when it comes to finding a ways to stopping that snowball. But your head coach has made multiple comments of, hey, game was over at that point. Hey, don't really give a bleep what these guys think right now because we're focused on the game. That's fine. But you've got to start giving some reasons as to why people should be believing in this team because you have made zero adjustments from games 2 to games 3.
All of the stuff that I'm hearing and seeing from the Winnipeg Jets, I am somebody that's predisposed to the Jets are a really good team. They'll figure this out eventually, right? That was my entry point into this series is I thought they were the better team. I thought they would win. I thought the injuries were something that maybe tightened the series more than it otherwise would be. But now you got Gabe Vilardi back. Like all of the reasons just hockey-wise coming into the series, I would have expected, they'll be all right. Mm-hmm. But then when I see them react to these situations, I hear what they have to say. I see the body language in the third period the other night. It's like, man, I don't know that they're going to be able to respond well. And so to me, if you're the Blues, you can use all of this, whether it's playing mind games with them, the way that I think Oscar Sundqvist has been each of the past 2 games. He's been amazing. You can tell he's having a lot of fun with it, where he's going up in every scrum trying to get into the minds of somebody from the Winnipeg Jets. Or if you're just, hey, we have got to lay it on them in this first period again. Because if we do, they are ready to lay down. And their fans will be getting after them as well. And they'll be calling for somebody other than Connor Hellebuck to be put into net for them. Like, if the Blues come out in the first period and play the way that they did in game 3 or 4, or really play the way that they did in game 1, but have better results where
this is the first period.
The first period was basically tied when you left each of the first 2 games of this series. If you just play that way and get better results for you with a little better puck luck, dude, I don't know how this Winnipeg Jets team is going to respond to that.
I'll tell you who they sound like right now. They sound a lot like the San Jose Sharks in 2019's Western Conference Final. You talk about tone in terms of snottiness. It was Erik Karlsson after that hand pass game in Game 3 when he was asked about it, and he was like, well, it's not like we're playing hand hockey out here. The tone from that point was like, oh, okay, cool. You're a broken team, and we know it. But then I remember after Game 2, I believe, because the Blues lost in Game 1, they won Game 2, if I'm remembering this correctly. Joe Pavelski was talking, and, I mean, it sounded like a broken dude. When they lack confidence, I'm telling you, the Blues are like sharks in the water that smell blood.
They had a veteran head coach, though, right?
They had Pete DeBoer.
Yeah, and I think that is the biggest difference.
But Pete DeBoer's got a tendency of that, too, in the last couple of years of his career, to where when things go haywire, he's even had a little of that with Dallas. Now, Dallas has overcome it, but when things go the opposite direction, he kind of gets Tony with it as well.
I do think there is something to the notion of, like, a coach that can keep things light in the room. Like Jim Montgomery,
Berube as well.
You can see it. Yeah, Berube was really good at that. And if nothing else, Berube was good at keeping his guys, allowing his guys to keep it light. Mm-hmm. So you had like Pat Maroon in the room who was able to do that. You had guys that just kept it light. It didn't feel that way with Winnipeg. I don't know who those guys are on the Jets roster that are keeping things light, but it felt as though they were a really tight, wound bunch.
Tense, man.
And Hellebuck certainly feels that way. Did you see his interview from yesterday?
Yeah.
Where he's talking to the media and he's like, nobody has ever in the history of the world studied hockey or goaltending the way that I have. It's like, yo, man, chill. Like, relax.
Meanwhile, Andre Vasilevsky's over here like, yeah, me, I have.
It's just weird vibes coming out of Winnipeg, man.
To me, it's insecurity right now. It's a group of guys that knows what the narrative is, and they're trying to stop that snowball. But much like my Indiana Jones Temple of Doom reference yesterday, or not Temple of Doom, regardless, whichever Indiana Jones one it is. At some point, you try and stop that ball from crushing you, but guess what? If it gets big enough, it's going to roll right over you. And right now, I think the Winnipeg Jets are like, hey, we can stop this. And then, whoop, swallows you up. That's what it feels like what after game number 4 was for Winnipeg.
He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm BK. We're going to get some more insight into this series as Jeremy Rutherford has just landed in beautiful Winnipeg. So we'll talk with him coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedurko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
We're going to be joined by Jeremy Rutherford here in just a moment. Jordan, just a heads up, it sounds like he got disconnected. He's up in Winnipeg.
Winnipeg media trying to get us gone.
He just landed in Winnipeg. Jeremy Rutherford did, the Blues insider for The Athletic. And as he's getting off of the plane, we gave him a call, and then immediately the call got disconnected.
Well, you told me during the commercial break because of his big head, it disconnected the phone.
Stop
he
it.
He said coming into this, he goes, in beautiful Winnipeg. Well, beautiful Winnipeg has terrible cell service.
Yeah, turns out that is indeed the case. He's going to be covering this series as it goes back to Winnipeg. Blues versus the Jets, Game 5 tomorrow night. Alex will have pregame coverage for you right here on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN tomorrow at 7:30. Puck drop for that one at
8:52.
Alex is super excited for that.
8:52
here on 101 ESPN. Jeremy Rutherford joins us now via the Callier and Thompson hotline. JR, we appreciate the time, man. How you doing up there in beautiful Manitoba?
Oh, not quite there yet. We got a little layover in Minnesota, but thought you guys would get a kick out of this. You know, we have to prepare when we're going to do these hits, right? And you never know when you have a layover, right, BK? And so I just got off a flight from St. Louis to Minneapolis here, and while the plane was bumping with the turbulence in the air, you should have seen this computer bouncing on my lap as I was trying to write the Tyler Tucker story in the air.
Absolutely.
And then we had to pick a time, so we went with 1:15, and after a few delays, got off the plane there at 1:14. So I'm here and ready for you.
Well,
there we
JR,
go.
I can tell you, buddy, that in Minnesota, beautiful 54 out. When you get to Winnipeg, beautiful 35.
Nice.
Sun's out, though. Sun is out in the good old peg.
Sun's out, guns out. I got my tank top pack, so I'll be ready.
All right, JR, let's get into this. This has been a fascinating series. Blues start out down 0-2. They have tied the series at 2 games apiece, and it has completely flipped. The Blues feel like the team that is in control, but, hey, Winnipeg felt that way coming back here to St. Louis prior to game number 3. What do you find to be the most interesting storyline heading into Game 5 tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that you feel that momentum if you're a St. Louis Blues fan, but that's exactly what the Winnipeg Jets felt like when they were coming to St. Louis. The couple storylines, and if we had to rank them there, I would have to say that number 2, Gabe Vilardi, he's going to be in the lineup. He's going to go into that top line for the Jets. Iafallo will drop down to the number 2 line, and Vilardi will be on the power play. That power play has struggled against the Blues PK, but they'll get a boost with Vilardi on that. The number 1 story, I would say, is Connor Hellebuyck. We finally heard him speak yesterday, and it didn't matter what you asked him. All he said was, I'm going to be better. And I think a guy with his pedigree, and even though he has that reputation not delivering in the playoffs, you got to expect he's going to be better in Game 5.
And I have to imagine, too, JR, that there's no changes from the Blues going into this game. They know what the recipe for beating Hellebuyck is, traffic in front of the net, which these last 2 games, the Blues have won that net front battle.
Yeah, they've been rewarded. That's the biggest thing in hockey is the coach can tell the players to go to the net and you know, just eat pucks and all the different things that can happen in front of the net, the cross-check zone and so forth. The coach can say that. But if the goals don't go in, the guys are going to not necessarily stop, but just be a little reluctant to go there if they're not getting rewarded. So I think with this situation, the Blues scoring some goals that way, having success against Hellebuyck, seeing him head to the bench twice the last 2 games, I think you got a situation where the Blues are going to feel that reinforcement, and you should see a continuation of that in Game 5.
We're talking to Jeremy Rutherford here on 101 ESPN. JR, you mentioned the Tyler Tucker news that you're writing about for The Athletic. It was announced today by Jim Montgomery. He's not expected to play in game number 5. He's considered to be day-to-day. Aren't we all at this point in the year? What does that do for the Blues? How much, if at all, does that change what they're able to do going into Game 5 with that offense that they were previously getting from their defensemen?
Well, it changes the look a little bit, you know, in one small area. What Tyler Tucker was able to do for you when he was on the ice, he's a guy who I think has really come on. He's shown the Blues organization that he's going to be a player for this team, I think, for years to come. And for Jim Montgomery to make that decision a couple games ago and and say, we're going to put Tyler Tucker in there, we're going to go with 6D, and Ryan Suter, you're coming out. I can't imagine how tough that conversation was, but those are the conversations you have to have in the playoffs. But Tyler Tucker's a guy who will pinch up into the offensive zone. He can handle himself up there. We've seen the shot. I don't know that we've seen, those types of opportunities for Ryan Suter and him take advantage of them. So you're going to go back to a veteran, though, who obviously knows what to do. He's going to have that edge because he was taken out of the lineup. He's going to want to get back in and show that should never happen again. And, like Jim Montgomery said today, just keep the puck moving north. That's what they need from Ryan Suter.
And Jim also, and I know you weren't here, JR, obviously you were on the flight, but Jim also talked about the benefits these last two games of rolling four lines. And to me, that's been another difference in this series was the decision to put Texier in. I don't think Texier has been this world beater, but he's at least given them consistent line threads to where they can go 1 through 4 and not really have to disrupt or double shift anybody.
Yeah, I think that's true. And the one thing about rolling four lines, too, and I know it kind of gets connected to, a checking game. Usually when you talk about rolling four lines, it's like they're coming out in waves. Everybody's hitting, and that's what we've seen from the Blues. The one thing I just read my colleague Murat's story at The Athletic from the Winnipeg perspective, and they want to see Josh Morrissey step up. They want to see some of these defensemen step up. You look at Morrissey, I think he's been on the receiving end now of 15-plus hits. The Blues, with their rolling of the lines, are really putting a ton of pressure and obviously physicality on these Winnipeg defensemen, and I think it's adding up. I think it really is, and maybe they can withstand the pressure from the Blues forwards and get through each game, but it takes them out of their offense, and you just haven't seen any offense from that Winnipeg blue line.
Last question that I've got for our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, as he's joining us live from his layover in Minnesota here on BK and Ferrario. JR, that Scheifele line was really good in the first couple of games of this series. They were really the line that beat the Blues in 2 games head-to-head. They were shut down back here in St. Louis, and now they get Gabe Vilardi added to that line. You mentioned him briefly, especially what he brings to the power play. How much do you think that the Blues – let me ask this a different way. How do the Blues match up with that line in Scheifele, Connor, and Vilardi?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tough. But I think after a few days off in between each of these games, you see a Robert Thomas who looks like he's more prepared his line to handle those guys. And so you look at what that line accomplished. They played a lot against the Scheifele line in St. Louis, and they got the job done. So – it's going to look different with Vilardi up there. I thought Iafallo did his part, but you look at the matchup, but it looks like Jim Montgomery wanted the same matchup after using a little bit of Shen against the Scheifele line, a little bit of that fourth line. But if you at the end of the game you go to natural stat trick, the Thomas line played a lot against them. So if that's the matchup that Scott Arniel wants once they go to Game 5 here in Winnipeg, I think that's what the Blues are going to get. But I think you can feel more confident about the job that Thomas and his line have done against them after what we saw in Games 3 and 4.
JR, this seems like a stupid question, so I apologize if it truly is. But in your opinion, who's been the MVP of this series so far?
Yeah, let's see here. I think that you have to probably look at it from a Blues perspective because they've jumped back into the series with the 2 wins in St. Louis. As I think about it, I think, it really has been a team effort, not to have a cop-out answer there, but I would probably go with Cam Fowler. I think that would have been my answer. Yeah, I think so. I think because of Colton Parayko and being a little banged up, he's really helped with that top defensive pairing. And when you think about a guy who can come in and not only help shut down that top Jets line, which is what we just talked about, but also put up the points that he has, I think it's got to be Cam Fowler at this point.
He has 5 assists on the power play.
I think he's only. I think he's 2 points away from the most, or 1 point away from the most points in the playoffs right now.
Yeah. So the 5-on-5 defense, the 5-on-5 point production, which he's way up there in the NHL point race too, and then also the help on the power play. He's the guy that would stick out to me.
Yeah, I think you could say Benner. That would be
the one that I was bringing up, but Fowler should be up there.
Yeah, Benner, I think, is a fair one. Thomas, for the way that he played in the last couple of games, I could certainly understand if somebody would argue for him as well. It speaks, though, to where this team's at and how they've been able to get back into this series, that they have multiple legitimate candidates.
Just making sure it wasn't Tyler Tucker for people panicking that he's not playing in game number 5, you know?
Yeah, and well,
played really well.
As long as I've been covering the Blues in terms of when they've been good and when they've been in the playoffs, it's always been hard to pick one or two guys. You know, this is a team that Doug Armstrong has built this way. He always uses a line that I'd rather pay 10 or 12 guys handsomely than one guy like a superstar, and that's the situation you got here once again.
Hey, JR, appreciate the time as always, man. Have safe travels up there to Winnipeg, and we will talk with you again next week.
Sounds good, boys. Talk to you later.
See you, JR.
That's Jeremy Rutherford joining us here on BK and Ferrario, as he does each and every Tuesday here on the show. Alex, who would you have as your MVP thus far? Benner?
Yeah, mine would be Binnington because, I mean, he kept you in the games in both 1 and 2, and then game 3 and 4, he has just robbed any hope of optimism from the Winnipeg Jets.
It's a totally fair one. T-Bone, who would you go with?
I would probably go with Binnington as well. You know, I thought about Cam Fowler, but even if you don't have the big point outburst in Game 3, they probably still win that hockey game. So because of Binnington, so that's the why I would give the edge to Benner. It's also possible the real answer is Texier. He's the only guy that's 2-0 in this series. Tucker's technically 2-1.
Tucker.
No, Tucker's 2-1.
Yeah, 11-7. I forgot
Technically,
about that.
Texier is undefeated in the playoffs with the Blues.
Yeah, that is
Watch
really
out, ladies
calling
and
card
gentlemen.
for the Blues. All right, he's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. If you guys missed any of our conversation with Jeremy Rutherford, check it out on the podcast page after the show today, 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app. That 101 ESPN app is sponsored by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Coming up before the end of the show, we will give you a chance to win a pair of tickets to see one of the biggest concerts in town. Post Malone is going to be in town with Jelly Roll, and we'll give you an opportunity to win a pair of tickets to that before the end of the show today. Coming up next, what do we make of the Cardinals' issues offensively lately? We'll talk about it here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday, the Cardinals lost their series opener to the Cincinnati Reds by a score of 3-1. Those teams are back in action tonight with first pitch at 5:40. As for the Blues, they did their job at home and even the series 2-2. They are headed back to Winnipeg for Game 5 tomorrow night, where Tyler Tucker will not be available. Pre-game show right here on 101 ESPN will start at 7:30, and puck drop will be at 8:30. I'm Jordan Deacon. The Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. We're broadcasting live from the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. E&B Granite, Bernie Fedorko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Going to be the one that does the fun with endpoints while things are going well for the Cardinals. I also have to do the opposite. And T-Bone, you brought this up earlier today. The Cardinals offense has not been great lately. A lot of that is due to their lack of slugging. Over the past 2 weeks, they have a slugging percentage of .353. Alex, you do not want your slugging percentage to start with the number 3, and you certainly don't want to have the same slugging percentage at any stretch of time as the Chicago White Sox. Unfortunately for the Cardinals, that is exactly where they're at. 25th in Major League Baseball over the past 2 weeks in slugging percentage. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. They've scored a combined 2 runs over the past 2 games, and the offense is a fair conversation to be had right now, Alex. They're going through it a little bit. The average is mostly fine. On base percentage is mostly fine. It's not anything to write home about, but it's okay. It's up to like average of the league standards. It's the slugging percentage that's really started to dip. And this is something we probably could have predicted because you don't have Ivan Herrera in the lineup right now. Nolan Gorman is not doing a whole lot of hitting, much less hitting for power. Same thing is true of Jordan Walker. There just aren't a whole lot of guys in this lineup currently. And you don't have Alec Burleson out there either because you're giving that runway to Nolan Gorman now. There just aren't many guys that project to be power hitters in this lineup. So I saw Ollie Marmol was on with another show earlier today, and he was asked, like, what can you do in order to manufacture some of that slug? And he basically said, hey, man, if you've got any ideas, I'm open to them, but there's really nothing you can do. We're giving a runway to these guys. They're struggling right now. And so there's no, like, magic button that you can hit. We just have to stick with them. And we think they're going to get out on the other side. They think that Nolan Arenado will have more power than this. They believe Wilson Contreras will show more power than he has shown so far this year. But, Alex, do you see it in there? Do you see more power coming, or is this just kind of what we expect the lineup to be?
I think this is what we expect the lineup to be. I don't see it coming, but I was just going to ask you, what was the sole purpose of this season for the Cardinals?
Yep.
To get answers. And guess what? You're getting answers right now. Walker's not producing the slug. Gorman's not producing the slug. Like, these are the guys. These are the 2 that we're really talking about right now because Newpar's been good for you. Has it been great? He's had his ups and downs. I think he's going through that down spout right now with the roller coaster. Donovan's been great for you. Herrera's hurt, who's supposed to be one of those. But we didn't expect a big slug percentage from Victor Scott. We didn't expect a big slug percentage from Mason Wynn. Like, the guys we were expecting it from were Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker. And guess what? They need the answers before the end of this season to find out. So I agree with Ollie. Now, maybe less tone would work, but, like, there's nothing he could do. They want to find out. Cardinals fans have been wanting to find out. Who are these players? Are they future main pieces for our success, or are they pieces that aren't going to live up to the expectations that the Cardinals had for them? Because if it's the latter, then you need to move on this offseason. You need to give runway to Sajasi. You need to give runway to other guys in your organization. Or frankly, you need to go spend money or assets to go get those pieces that can be that. So I expect it to remain this way. I think Jordan Walker at the early portion of this season looked a little bit more confident at the plate. Now it's falling back down to earth. Gorman falling back down to earth. perfect. At the end of this season, you hope that they play 140-plus games, and you could say, we know who these two are. Do they fit into our future?
Yeah, I don't see the power numbers coming for this lineup, and I was skeptical of that at the beginning of the year, and it's really going down because of Herrera out, and Contreras hasn't started hitting for power yet. It's just not going to be in their bats. None of these guys really profile as that. Gorman, sure, but Gorman's going to go through stretches where he doesn't hit for power. And at this point, I think the Gorman experience is more of confirmation as to what he is and not so much learning what he is. And I think they're not – I don't know how they would feel about his answer.
I think they know what Gorman is, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, T-Bone. I think they know what Gorman is. The question is, can he realize the potential of that type of player? Like, yes, he's going to be a low average, low on-base percentage guy. Can you hit for enough slug that it makes up for the number of strikeouts, the lack of contact that you make otherwise?
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. It's going to come down to, though, figuring out, okay, well, is this going to be what it was 2 years ago, which was that exactly, right? It was, hey, 1 month, it is ugly. It's hard to sell the fan base on starting this guy, especially against right-handed pitching. But then there's that month where he can go for like 10 home runs, and he looks like one of the best hitters in baseball. If he can get back to that form, yeah, there's a role for that guy on your team in a platoon spot. Right now, though, he doesn't seem to be showcasing that, but to be fair to him, it's only 1 month, right? And he hasn't been getting everyday opportunities. He started out on the bench.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. Evil Calvin texted in, Goldie's number 2 in Major League Baseball in hitting. Last year, he was washed up. Players shouldn't be slugging. Put the ball in play. This is just bad coaching. I mean, the Cardinals, if you're talking about, like, put the ball in play, Cardinals are one of the 10 best teams in baseball at putting the ball in play. They only strike out less than 20% of the time, which, 15 years ago, that would be a mediocre to bad strikeout rate. Today, that's pretty damn good. You look at their batting average on the season, the Cardinals are fine when it comes to batting average. That's not the problem for them. The problem for the Cardinals is when they put the ball in play, they're not doing damage with it. So I don't think that the lack of slugging percent or the lack of putting the ball in play, that's not something that I would say is a fair critique of this year's Cardinals offense. It has been at times in the past where maybe, especially in certain situations, they're a team that doesn't choke up as much as you'd like, but I don't think that's fair to say about them this year. Batting on the season, they're a .263 average, which is tied for the best in all of Major League Baseball. Again, their batting average is fine. Mm-hmm. It's just really hard to win that way if you don't have slug. Like, here's an example for you. You brought up that person brought up the Yankees. The Yankees and Cardinals right now are tied for the best batting average in Major League Baseball at .263. The Yankees are slightly better at getting on base because they walk a little bit more. They're at a .340 slugging percentage. The Cardinals are at .330. So it's not a huge difference, but a slight difference between the two. You know where the difference comes and why the Yankees right now are one of the best teams in Major League Baseball offensively and why the Cardinals are mediocre?
Slug, baby, slug.
It's home runs.
Yep,
the Yankees have 45 home runs this year. The Cardinals have 24. So they've almost doubled up what the Cardinals have just in terms of the home runs. Their slugging percentage is 70 points higher than where the Cardinals are at. Yankees are second in home runs in Major League Baseball this year. Meanwhile, the Cardinals are 23rd in Major League Baseball in home runs this year. It's really that simple.
Yeah. And who are the guys that you expected to be home run hitters on this team? Contreras, who is bad right now. Herrera, who is hurt. Mm-hmm. And Gorman. And I think Gorman is the one that a lot of people are pointing at and being like, who are you? They know what Contreras is. You know what Herrera is already, and you just hope that it continues to get better. Gorman was the one that it was like, are you the guy that is going to provide the power specifically from the left side?
You know what Gorman's starting to feel like to me? Tyler O'Neill. And he has not had the season that Tyler O'Neill had in 2021 where O'Neill was just an absolute monster that year, right? Like a legit MVP consideration type of player. But beyond that, it was always about the power potential with Tyler O'Neill, more so than the power production with Tyler O'Neill. In 2019, he played 60 games and had 5 home runs. His slugging percentage was .411. The next year, .360. After that, .392 and .400. There's the entirety of his Cardinals career. And then there was that one season where he slugged .560. One of those things is not like the others. For all of the talk about Nolan Gorman and his power, which is real, he has real, legitimate, pure power. Raw power. It's accessing that power that's been difficult for him because he strikes out so often that you don't put the ball in play enough to have a slugging percentage that reflects the raw power that you have in your bat. So I think we're starting to get to the point where, and I know he's still a young player and all of that, and there's a lot of runway to go here this season, and they should continue to play him, but his slugging percentage, year 1, 420, year 3, 400, year 4 right now, 375. He did have one season in 2023 where things looked better. He hit 27 home runs that year, had a 480 slugging percentage. Are we going to look back at that as that was the outlier, similar to the 2021 season being the outlier for Tyler O'Neill? I feel like that's at least in the cards right now.
Yeah. And it checks out. I mean, it checks out that it's a different narrative because, like you mentioned, O'Neill was injured and Gorman has just not been consistent for you. But look at who O'Neill was supposed to be. O'Neill was the replacement. He was the cheaper Bryce Harper to the Cardinals. We didn't have to spend money on Harper because we've got Tyler O'Neill. And when it didn't happen, look at what happened to the Cardinals offense. You were chasing your tail for the next 4+ years.
And then I think the question that they have to ask, because I think we're at the point where this is who he is maybe you still hope for more power in there. But like I was just looking out of this out of like curiosity of like I typically think by about 1,000 plate appearances, 1,000 to 1,200, you've got an idea of what that player is. Gorman's at that, and the slash line is 221, 300, 433 for his career, and he's 2% above league average. And then I looked at like Randy Arozarena had 800 OPS through 1,300 play appearances career. Typically, you have an idea. So this is not about we got to find out what Gorman is. I think it's the Cardinals trying to figure out, do they want to live with this kind of profile?
Sure.
You know, is this a profile, to your point on Tyler O'Neill, and they finally decided against it to where it was, okay, this is like a okay player that you probably want hitting like 6 in your lineup that gives you Gold Glove level defense in the outfield, but we were looking for more, and we had all kinds of issues with him in the locker room, and Gorman doesn't have that problem. But I think that's the question they're asking now, not about, what is the ceiling for Nolan Gorman? I think they know what he is as a player now. I think it's about, okay, do we want to live with this? And if we do live with this, where does this fit in our lineup as the St. Louis Cardinals? That's what they've got to decide this year.
He's Alex Ferrario, that's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind and give you an opportunity to see Post Malone in concert this summer. We'll tell you how next here on 101 ESPN.
Live from the Centene Community Ice Center inside the E&B Granite Studios. This is BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. E&B Granite, Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. Let's run it back with the Daily Rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Are you a postie, Alex?
What did you just call? Is this another fat nickname?
A Post Malone fan?
No, I'm not a postie. Or a jelly
I don't know what we would call a jelly roll fan.
Jeller.
T-Bone, are you a postie?
I am. I like Post
T-Bone
Malone.
looks like he's a postie. He could pull off a face tat.
Well, T-Bone might be going to the concert this summer, May 13th at Busch Stadium, and you could join him. Here is your shot to score a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll on May 13th at Busch Stadium. Text in 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. And if you are texter number 101 with the correct answer to the question that I am about to ask you, you are the winner of today's opportunity to win a pair of tickets to see Post Malone and Jelly Roll on May 13th. We'll have opportunities on our show all week long. And guess what? The Fastlane has opportunities to win a pair of tickets as well. Here's the question for you guys today. Earlier, I mentioned Alex reminds me of a prehistoric animal. What was that prehistoric animal?
There's gonna be a lot of people sending in whales or walruses or something.
If you have
like
the
that.
correct answer to that question, your texter number 101, you are going to see Post Malone on May 13th. All right, let's hit the rewind, Alex, to finish off the show today. Let's start out with the Cardinals. We'll get back into the Blues here in just a little bit as well. Cardinals lose once again on the road yesterday. They are now 2-12 on the road through the first 30 full games of the regular season. It's the second worst road mark in Major League Baseball right now, behind only the Colorado Rockies. In fact, if you look back over the last 20 years at teams that were this bad on the road through the first 30 games, oh boy, is it a whole lot of bad baseball. You've got a lot of teams that lost 95 or more games, all of them except for one, in fact. And then the 2005 Astros, who we mentioned back during the 2023 season for the Cardinals, of, hey, they were bad. They were bad. They went to the World Series. And
we could beat them.
They started 1-14 on the road, eventually lost in the World Series. Alex, what do you make of the Cardinals' road issues this season?
Nothing, because I don't really know how to read into this one. We talked about it, which go back and listen to it, but it seems very unfair, but it might actually be fair. A lot of this might be Ryan Fernandez is why they've struggled on the road this season. It just seems to be part of the season right now to where the offense is hot at home, but it's just not getting the job done on the road. But then when they are on the road, the bullpen goes wrong or the starting pitching goes wrong. It seems like if something bad can happen on the road, it will happen on the road for the Cardinals. And it really might just be how the season's going for St. Louis, but the narrative might shift in the next couple of weeks since they don't have Ryan Fernandez, who has struggled on the road.
Yeah, I don't make too much of it. I think it's just one of those weird things of baseball through at this stretch. Sure, the offense hasn't hit as well on the road as it has at home, but it's not been like one of the worst offenses on the road. They're about middle of the pack. The pitching ERA, the starting staff hasn't been good. That gets carried and bloated by a couple really bad outings at Boston. And then you mentioned it, Fernandez. He happens to come in and give up a couple of big innings for the relief corps. Now that they started to churn through this bullpen, if it still is a problem by about this time next month, then we can have a serious conversation about, okay, what is going on? There really is something to their road woes. Right now, I think it's just one of those random things of baseball.
Ryan Fernandez on the road so far this season, 6 appearances, 9 hits allowed, 9 runs allowed. It is not just him, though. Jojo Romero, 7 appearances, 6 runs allowed on the road. Gordon Graceffo had his blow up on the road as well. And then Roycroft, we remember what that looked like in Pittsburgh. 4 appearances, 4 runs on the road. It's the bullpen. The bullpen is absolutely imploding on the road for the Cardinals this season. They've got to get that under control. Last night it was about the offense, but overall this season it has really been the Cardinals bullpen that's been blowing it for them in these road games. All right, final thing here today. Alex, we got a couple of pieces of news. One, Gabe Vilardi expected back into the lineup for the Winnipeg Jets in Game 5. Tyler Tucker expected to be out of the lineup on the Cardinals, or excuse me, the Blues side of things. Mm-hmm. Your biggest takeaway from those 2 injury-related notes heading into Game 5, which we'll certainly discuss more tomorrow on the show.
Tucker doesn't concern me. Yes, he was adding a little bit more offense than what we saw, but it's also a third-pair defenseman that I think Ryan Suter can fit in there, and I do believe Ryan Suter, a grizzled vet, is going to be able to see what he was lacking when he was playing and add it to what the Blues are doing right now. And right now the system's working. The Vilardi one's interesting to me. Looking at his numbers, he's effective, but he's really effective on the power play. At even strength, he's not this offensive threat. What he is he's a guy that creates a lot of opportunities, a lot more opportunities, I should say, for Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. So the Blues have done a really good job of eliminating that line. Can the Blues continue to do that in Winnipeg and also generate the offense against them? Because that's one flaw from the Four Nations break until the end of the regular season. When it was Vilardi, Scheifele, and Connor, they created offense, but they gave up more high-danger scoring chances than what they were creating.
That Scheifele line outscored the Blues 3-0 when we were in Winnipeg. It was outscored 3-0 at 5-on-5 here in St. Louis. Game 5 tomorrow night. We'll have full breakdown right here on 101 ESPN. We've got a Winnipeg guy who's going to come on. He's a Hockey Canada coach, Alex. He's going to come on to help us break down what exactly has gone wrong for the Winnipeg Jets in this series tomorrow. We'll talk to Chris Kerber tomorrow as well. It's Game 5 tomorrow night. Game 6 coming up on Friday. And Anthony Stalter will be at a watch party at Cafe Telegraph. Be sure to hang out with him out there, grab some drinks, delicious food, enjoy the Blues game on all of their big screens. It's Friday night at Cafe Telegraph, located at 2650 Telegraph Road. It is with Anthony Stalter. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Jordan Deacon did a fantastic job for us back in the studio for us today. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.